sureness, there's a lot to be said for it.
Yeah, wisdom.
So, wisdom and practice too, knowledge, wisdom and knowledge. Okay, so I'm starting with this particular part. We're definitely going to do chart practice today as well. And I really want the chart practice to be kind of based on what you all do, as kind of coming back to this idea that I talked about on Thursday, but have also been talking about on Sunday, about being wrong and how important that actually is, right? So it really is important to be able to allow yourself to be wrong, because even though our thought processes or our logic might be right, we may still be wrong. And we need to know both things. We need to know that our thought process was correct, but we just came to the wrong conclusion with it, and how we can calibrate the next time we see something like that, that makes that possible. So I'm going to exhort you all to participate, and don't give a fuck if you're wrong. Just say something and give me a good reason. That's all I want, because that's what I do. I had a client yesterday. And I did my little thing where I asked questions at the beginning of all the things that the chart seems to be saying specifically, and I was only fully right about one of them. But it was enough of it that everything else fell into place. Two things came up yesterday in this reading that confirmed stuff that I've been saying. Every time that you read for somebody, you are going to find them in a vritti. We talked about that on Thursday. Vritti is the Sanskrit word for cyclic turning. Something that returns in on itself, turns and turns, but doesn't escape the turning, right? So a vritti, everybody is in their own personal vritti. And in my opinion, or where I seem to be coming to looking at consultations at this particular point, because mind you, I burned out on reading for people and stopped doing Western astrology altogether for 15 years. So I got sick of reading for people. And now that I've come back to it after all of this time, I really am feeling this idea of this vritti, that everybody's in their own little personal vritti. And for us to be able to witness it for them, to grapple with it with them, to find either an escape or alleviate damage that's created as a result of it, it's really one of the major things that we're doing. Okay, so my dream. So the reason I have this picture, this is a picture of Sri Ranganatha Swami, who is the murti or idol at a temple called Sri Rangam. Sri Rangam is in Tamil Nadu. It's on an island. The island, it's an island that's part of a city called Tiruchirappalli. And Tiruchirappalli has this island of Sri Rangam where there is this temple, and there is also a famous temple called the Jambukeshwara temple, which is where Lord Shiva is worshipped as water. And one of the interesting things about this, as far as the water thing is concerned, this is on the Calvary River, the Calvary Delta, and this is where Lord Vishnu sleeps. So this is where Lord Vishnu sleeps, by the Calvary River. Anyway, so the connection with sleep, once again, is a part of this. So I was in Texas. This was 2013. I have the chart. We're going to look at the chart in a minute. It was 2013. It's December of 2013. I've come back. I've been back from Thailand for about 2 years. I've only been in Austin, Texas for about 4 months or 5 months. And I'm still very, very connected to the experiences that I had in India. I was supposed to be going to India and instead got rerouted. So I had all these other issues and had to come back to the United States instead. So I was on my way to India when I came back to the United States and wasn't able to kind of fulfill my pilgrimage, etc. And at this point, I am really, really deeply in bhakti or worship for Shiva, for Lord Shiva, and have been going to the specific Shiva temples, etc. When I've been going to India, deep, deep, deep into bhakti, deep. So I go to sleep. Or rather, it's time for me to go to sleep. Oh, good, Layla Akbar's here. We'll wait for her to get situated in so that she doesn't miss the story. We just started, Layla. We're just getting it together. We're just getting in it. And I'm just telling them about this dream that I had. So it's 12:30 p.m. I look at the clock, it's 12:30 p.m. or a.m. rather, and it's time for me to go to bed. I lay down and I'm on my back and I feel something on my chest. I look down and there's a lizard on my chest. And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell? So I wipe this, I kind of, get the lizard off of me. And then I immediately fall asleep. And then when I fall asleep, the lizard becomes a lizard that's on this temple. It's called the Varadaraja Perumal temple. And it's the only Vishnu temple that I've ever been to at this point. I've only been to one. I've been to Shiva temple after Shiva temple. I've been to Kali temples. I went to the Kalighat temple in Calcutta. I've gone to a Kamakshi Amman temple. I've been to goddess temples. I've been to Shiva temples. I've only been to one, as of this point in my life, I've only been to one Vishnu temple in my entire life. And it's this temple. And this is the lizard. So the lizard, like I said, it starts on my chest. I find like, oh, there's this lizard on my chest. It's like really more like a gecko. And I'm like, what the hell? I fall asleep immediately. And all of a sudden, here I am in Varadaraja Perumal temple looking at this lizard on the ceiling. And then I hear this voice and it says, you must go and receive darshan at Sri Rangam temple. You have to go and give darshan and do darshan for Sri Rangam. And I'm thinking, well, okay. And you must also go to, there was another temple that told me to go to, but it was like, go to Varadaraja Perumal, go to Sri Rangam, worship Vishnu, go and worship Vishnu. So I'm like, what the hell? I'm a Shiva worshiper. Why is, and it happened. This is the second time it happened. So this is the temple it said to go to. Go to Sri Rangam temple. And I'm thinking, what the hell? I'm a Shiva worshiper. This is not what I'm about. God is one, is what I really learned about. But but there are all kinds of dreams, including what they call prophetic dreams. And I wouldn't necessarily call this prophetic, but I would call it oracular, because I did end up going to Sri Rangam. At the next time I went to India, which was 2015, 2016, I did go to Sri Rangam. And I ended up staying with the family there, and very interesting things ended up happening that if you're interested in me talking about, I'll tell you a little bit later. But for right now, we're going to go into this dream chart, because the ninth house is also the house of dreams. So one of the things to understand is that there isn't very much, and what there is, I don't have. So we're going to look at Lily, and one of the first things Lily says is, well, Bonatti is really the best on this, but I only have part one of Bonatti's horary book, and that only goes to the sixth house. So I don't have the section on the ninth house, but I do have Lily, and we do have Scherner here. And so basically Scherner says, if the Lord of the ninth is this, then the dream will be about these things. Now, most of these, in this particular case, we're looking at things from a horary standpoint. We're not looking at the natal chart and thinking, okay, what kind of dreams does this person have, right? We're not looking at that. We're really looking at the ninth house for dreams, standalone for dreams, because primarily the way that the astrologers were looking at these dreams was, do they actually mean anything that will come to be? Are they actually representing something real? Is this a premonitory dream that will come to be, where things will happen? And so then there were things that you would look at in order to make those particular things happen. However, when we're just looking at the dream itself, then Scherner says, if Saturn is the lord of the dream, then the dream is about the dead, crying. So it's everything that has to do with people, with the significations of these planets. Are you talking about third triplicity? No, I'm talking about the ruler of the ninth. Good question. We're going to come to that in a minute. Right? So the thing here says, if blah, blah, blah is the lord of the ninth, not is the third. And believe me, Scherner would have made it specific. He would have been specific about that. He would have said, if it were the third triplicity ruler of the ninth, then he would have definitely done it. In this particular case, he's saying, look, if this is it, then this is more than likely what it's about. So at this point, we should have a good idea Got it. Love that clarity. At this point, we should have a good idea of what the significations of the planets are. There should be no surprises. Saturn, the dead, crying, demons, tombs, roads through deserts. Jupiter, honorable persons, prayers, ecclesiastics. No surprises. Battles, knights, horses, fire, dogs for Mars. Sun, kings, princes, powerful people. Women, things that smell good for Venus. Learned persons, books, school, numbers for Mercury, right? Everything makes total sense. Okay? So, with that in mind, here's the chart for the dream. And I don't know if you all are interested, but the first thing that I did when I had this dream was I connected with a Jyotish group. And I said, hey, I had this dream. What the hell is it about? And I got the most amazing delineation based on my Jyotish chart, where it became very, very clear why these specific things were happening. If you're interested in that, we can also talk about that later. Oh, sorry. But what we would be looking at first is the ruler of the ninth house, or is the ninth house and the ruler of the ninth. The ninth house is Jupiter. The ninth house is Sagittarius, and Jupiter is there. Note also that here's one of those out of sign conjunctions that Layla likes to ask about, because Mars is about to move into Cancer. He's about to move. And so that is an interesting thing because it captures me at a very different, it would say that the person we're talking about is about to make a change, is on the precipice of a change. And certainly that's what the dream was saying or asking. It was saying, hey, change what you're doing. Don't actually stick with where you are. Or expand yourself. There's Jupiter, right? Expand your definition of who God is and who you can worship. Right? But you need to go to India and do this. You need to go to India and worship Vishnu. Period. Now, in Jyotish, each planet represents one of the deities. So for instance, the sun represents Shiva. Mercury and the Saturn represent Vishnu. Note that Jupiter is exalted in this chart, but he's also with Mercury, who we could then say is pointing to Vishnu. Note also that Mars is in Mercury's sign, which can also bring us to Vishnu. Now I'm now here. I've just last week I was saying we don't like to mix the two things, and I'm mixing. So I'm guilty as charged. I am mixing. Then the third triplicity ruler of the ninth house is Saturn. Who did I say are the two representatives of Vishnu? Mercury and Saturn, right? So in this particular chart, if I were to do it kind of with this mixture way, then we could still kind of see some of these elements of Vishnu that are showing up. Other than that, though, we would know that there is now not necessarily religious, right? Because the sun is religion, but Jupiter, there's some kind of ascension. Jupiter is called Guru, right? So Jupiter is trying to turn the light on in a dark place. Not to get too scientific about it, but do you cast the dream chart when you wake up? No, I casted it because I knew that I went to sleep at exactly that time. I think otherwise most people would do it when they wake up. The only reason that I didn't, because most people have a dream and wake up from that dream, right? In this particular case, I fell asleep and the dream came upon me right away. And so I took the time I took the time that my head hit the pillow, essentially, which I knew was 12:30, because I was looking at the clock.
Okay, so that means that if you go to sleep and then you immediately see the dream, that's when you will cast the chart. But if it's the kind of dream that makes you wake up from your sleep, then you'll use that waking up time.
Exactly. That's what I would, because that's what usually happens is you wake up from the dream and remember it. Right. And so that would be, so in the remembering is when I would cast the chart. But at this point, what actually activated it wasn't a dream, it was a vision. or it was an oracular vision. And what activated the vision was the gecko on my chest, in my opinion. That happened at 12:30. This is all debatable. This is all debatable and discussable, but that's what I decided to choose.
Okay, so like in horary, you have taught us that the time that we use to cast a horary chart is when we are really anxious about the matter and it wouldn't leave us. So I think in this instance, the part of the dream where you feel like it's the most engaging part, or it's the kind of part that, where, for you, where it was the gecko landing on your chest. So we're going to use that point as a reference.
However, also, I see this as an event chart, not a horary. Even though we're using horary
sense.
right now, right? So even though we're using horary right now, I see this as an event chart. So, I mean, and of course, it's all one, right? I mean, I could certainly read any election like a horary chart, right? I can read a natal chart like a horary chart, right? But ultimately, this is the event chart for the dream. Whereas, often when we wake up from the dream and we have the question, what the hell was that about?
Yeah.
That's the time of the question too. In my particular instance, I knew what time I went to bed, and I knew that the whole thing started the minute I hit the bed.
Okay, all right. So if this was an event chart, you would not use the Regiomontanus house system. You would use some another house system.
No, you'd use Regiomontanus still.
Okay, for election too, right? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, here's the thing. If we look at this whole signage, then we've got the sun, who does represent God. We've got Mercury. We've got Jupiter. And like we were talking about this last week, whether we thought that the 12th house has to do with sleep or not, whether it has to do with sex or not, because it's the 12th and Pisces on it, and we've heard it being the exaltation of Venus. And we know that we've seen Venus in the 12th often gives people affairs, illicit affairs, that kind of thing. It doesn't tend to mean that they don't like sex. It tends to mean that the right hand might not know what the left hand is doing when it comes to that area, right? So it's interesting that there isn't a specific house that's been given to sleep, as far as I know, in traditional Western astrology, but the 12th house is given to sleep for in Jyotish. So I just thought that's an interesting thing. And note that Saturn is the ruler of the 12th, but Jupiter is the natural ruler of the 12th as well. So, so in my opinion, I mean, I think I don't really have a strong way to kind of delineate. Let's look at what Lily had to say about when you're looking at dreams. Okay, so Bonatus in judging this question far exceeds Haley. And like I said, I don't have the Bonatti, so I don't have that. Otherwise, I would have used it. Of course, this is, we're Bonatti specialists here, and I don't particularly have that that resource. So what effect of the dream shall be? Behold the ninth place house and give it to signify the dream. Now notice also that the ninth sign was Sagittarius, and we know. First, the ninth house and Sagittarius, we both connect to what? What do we connect them to? Come on, you all know this. Travel, long distance travel. I was in Texas. It was telling me to do what? Go to India. So that's the first thing, is that Sagittarius, it wasn't Pisces on the cusp of the ninth, right? It was Jupiter's sign of travel. And Mars is the ruler of the ascendant. Mars is the what? He's the significator for pilgrimage, right? So sure enough, we've got Mars as in Aries. We've got the move it Mars, right? We don't have the poison Mars. We have the move it Mars, right? The moving Mars, so the Aries sign on the ascendant, right? So we already know that we've got ninth house, which already means travel, but then we've got Sagittarius, which also tends to point to the foreign. The traveling and the foreign, long distance travel and the foreign, right? We have Jupiter exalted as well. So whatever is happening, we can say that whatever agent is representing the ninth house is extremely powerful, right? So because it takes a lot of power to do a premonition. Like I've had premonitory dreams, I've had psychic dreams. I had a dream where a woman who I was working with, her mother came into the dream and told me 3 different things, and they were all true. She told me that she was about to come into a large amount of money, and it turned out that the woman's husband had just died, and the family had left him money. She said that her husband was going to take a long journey over the seas, and her husband was Israeli. And so he was going back to Israel to take care of the thing. So I've had these kind of dreams before. It takes a lot of power to kind of pierce the veil to be able to give. You either need to be super sensitive so that the veil is really thin, or it takes a lot of power from the other side for it to come up. So in this particular case, having that Jupiter, let me just once again show the Jupiter. Having that exalted angular Jupiter as the ruler. And notice in the lower, it's in the midnight part of the chart. All of this is happening down in the midnight part, right? This is sunrise, this is noon, this is sunset, this is midnight. That's right, I fell asleep at midnight. Everything's down there. Ruler of the night's down there with me, home. But also what ended up happening, because after I went to India and went and did that pilgrimage, and I came back, I started receiving all of this information about past life karma that was specifically connected to that temple. That basically one of the major reasons for incarnating in this life had to do when I was an Indian Brahmin who worshipped Sri Rangam, whose family worshipped Sri Rangam. And so it turned out to be a really important thing to have done. But it was only because of this dream that I did, because I promise you, if I had not had that dream, I would still be going to nothing but Shiva temples, period. I would not have been, I might have gone to 1 or 2, but I would never have taken it as seriously as I did on the pilgrimage that I did in 2015. Before starting the yoga teacher training. So let's go back to Lily and see what he has to say. Because my entire first month in India was pilgrimage. And then I got to Mysore for my teacher training on my birthday, on my 50th birthday on January 1st. So that entire December was nothing but, matter of fact, it was end of November. Well, no, it was December. That entire December was nothing but pilgrimage. So all of that was done during that time. Okay, so here he talks about if a planet is there. If Saturn's there, this will happen. And really what he talks about is if Saturn and or the South Node are there, how it will be basically kind of a night fright. And then you want to check to be sure that it's not going to come true. And you want to look to the houses where Capricorn and Aquarius are, which are ruled by Saturn, to see what area of life he's scared about. So that I found very interesting. But when we're talking about us, just me in my situation at the moment, right? No planets in the 9th, consider the 10th and see if any planet be therein. In that other chart, there isn't. And if there isn't in the 10th, then you look to the 7th. And if there isn't in the 7th, you look to the 4th. So let's just do that. Go back to the chart and do that. Okay, so there's nothing. Well, Pluto's in the 10th, but we're not going to use him. Nothing in the 7th, although you might think about Saturn. Saturn's in the 7th. So basically, he's close enough. He's not really close enough to the 8th house to be in the 8th. And Saturn is the 3rd triplicity lord of the 9th. So that's something. Saturn in this chart rules what? 11, 10, 11, and 12, right? And 10, 11, and 12. Look at that. 10, 11, and 12. He rules in this chart. And look at how he rules the part of fortune in the 11th house. Now, the 11th house is what? Your future hopes and dreams. It's the future things that you hope to do. So it's something that might happen that you're hoping to happen in the future. Also, let's look at the part of future, right? The pars futurorum is also known as what? Anybody know? It's this part of spirit. So we would go forward 60 and back 4. Forward 60 is 8, 9 Gemini, back 4 is 5 degrees of Gemini. Mercury is the ruler of the spirit. I just wanted to see if Saturn was also the ruler of the spirit, because it's looking like there's or future, a ruler of what's coming in the future. Mercury in this case is ruler of what, the 3rd and which could be messages, and the 6th, so not necessarily. But the fortune is really in the 11th, which is about what's going to happen in the future. What kind of wish or desire for the future I have. And this basically did implant a wish or desire into my head. I mean, the first thing it did was obviously confuse me because I didn't worship Vishnu. But obviously why? And like I said, this was the second time it had happened. This was the second dream I had had where something said to go to Sri Rangam temple. Not just a dream saying to worship Vishnu. I had 2 dreams at completely different times saying, go to this temple. So,
How did it end up working out for you?
well, okay, we'll talk about that. It ended up, well, okay, so I do this long thing. I end up getting sick. And at this particular time, I used to I had just come back from another pilgrimage in India where I'd gotten really impressed upon. Like I had really been kind of transformed by it. And I was using mala beads. I had like 6 rows of mala beads that I wore all the time for 6 years. The only time I took these mala beads off was when I took a shower or when I had sex. Literally, I had them on all the time. And because I was living in Thailand, I'd be going to India and then I would go home to Thailand. And then as I would ride my motorbike, I would chant my mantras. And then I would chant one of my mantras and I'd chant another one. And I was using the mala beads for the mantras and everything. And so they were, all of the power of the mantras that I'd been chanting was around my neck. And from the time that from like 2010 until I get to Sri Rangam, I've been wearing them nonstop. I get to Sri Rangam, I'm staying at this family's house, and I've been sick, but I'm finally feeling a little bit better. So I decide to do my yoga practice. Also, I'm going from Sri Rangam to Mysore to start the yoga teacher training. So I decide to take them off in order to do my yoga because I'm going to be upside down. And for some reason, unconscious reason, I never put them back on. I never put them back on. I get to Mysore and it's the 2nd or 3rd day and I realize, I'm not wearing my mala beads. This doesn't make any sense. I'm like, wait a minute. This is, very, very strange. So I have to go back to Sri Rangam. And the weirdest thing is that when I went to Sri Rangam the first time, I didn't get darshan. I wasn't quite feeling well enough. I was only there for like 2 nights. And so I do this other thing where I do my yoga instead of going to get darshan. And so that first time I figure, okay, well, it's just good enough for me to be here. I don't actually receive darshan. I don't actually go into the temple and look at the idol. I go to Mysore, realize that I don't have my beads. I get a message from my host, hey, your beads are here. I'm like, yes, I'll be back for them. So at the end of my teacher training, I go back to Sri Rangam, finally have darshan many times, and get my beads. And one night I have my beads on. The next morning I wake up and all of my beads are loose on the bed. All of my beads are loose on the bed. Every single necklace has snapped. And all of my beads are loose on the bed. Now, this is important because when you wear beads like that, you're usually going the sannyasin route. You're usually going the Swami Sannyasin kind of ascetic route and not belonging to a family, not belonging to the larger culture. Remember that nobody wanted their children to be yogis because that meant that you left everything. That's what I did when my family were worshiping Sri Rangam thousands of years ago. What I found out was that I had left the family to become a monk, to become a yogi, and that my family had done terribly. That the family had suffered horribly as a result of, because I was like the oldest son or something like that. And so I was kind of responsible for everybody. And it was when I went to one of these Shiva temples that I went to in one of the pilgrimages lately in this past life, that I become a Shiva worshiper and a yogi and leave my family and they are destroyed as a result. And so that's one of the reasons I'm paying for it in this particular life. Have no children, have never been married, have always had money problems, things of that nature. There are issues that basically that's what I learned through the Jyotish group, was that there was a curse of Sri Rangam in my chart, and that was the reason that I was being told to go. So that's what ended up happening. It's pretty amazing, huh? I mean, it's a pretty interesting story. I mean, I've had fascinating, interesting experiences happen, but that was really different. That was really, and I'll tell you another interesting part. Around this time, is when I started knowing about my the current guru that I worship, who is his name is Trilanga Swami. I've talked a little bit about him as well. And when I went, and he is a Varanasi sage, he's a Varanasi Swami. And so I was really deeply, and matter of fact, one of the main things I wanted to do on that trip was, when I got back to Varanasi, if I got back to Varanasi, I would go to his ashram, I would go to his mandir, and had amazing experience. When I did, I had amazing experiences. But the interesting thing is, I do go back to Varanasi, and I walk into my yoga guru's room. And when I walk in, the first thing I see is a picture of Trilanga Swami. It was not there the last time I was there. So there were all kinds of interesting, fascinating, wonderful things that happened while I was in India, which is one of the reasons I'm addicted to it in the first place, is because of how much phenomena is available to happen. But this is just it's a fascinating thing to look at as far as dreams are concerned. We all have all kinds of dreams, but I just happen to have a chart for this extremely interesting dream that happened to me. And so I thought I would share that, since we were a little, I felt I was a little disorganized last week around some of the stuff. We always learn, but I didn't get a chance to bring this in. So what I thought I would do now is we would look at some charts of people who are having some issues. For some reason, okay, there we go. And find out what you all think you would say to them for what's going on with them. So let's see if we can find something good and juicy. Okay, here's one. To achieve at least the bare minimum of an independent life. So what do we think of when we think independence?
I think of Saturn ruled signs. I think of the houses below the first 7 houses.
Well, let's break it down this way. What do you need to be able to be independent?
Your own
Money.
place.
Money. What did you say? Your own place? But you need money to be able to have your own place. So let's look at money and your own. I think I like both of those. So you need money, you need your own place. So let's look at the second.
You need emotional maturity, but yeah, fine.
Well, I mean, but you could be independent and still not be emotionally mature. My parents never probably got beyond 6 or 7 emotionally. And
no, I guess I just meant that there's financial dependence and there's emotional dependence, and you can have your own place and not be independent.
True. I think, I mean, I'm assuming I'm giving lowest denominator of independence without that.
No, I got
right?
you. Yeah.
Okay, so because that can certainly, I mean, all kinds of people think they're independent and they're not. You know, all kinds of people think they're adults and they're not acting like one. Right. So they've got the number that makes sense for an adult, but they don't act like one. Right. So I'm just going for the most basic idea. So let's look at the second house. What's going on with the second house here?
The ruler is in the 9th house, and also there's Ketu there.
Rahu. And what's the
sorry, yeah.
condition of the ruler?
Good, exalted.
It's exalted. So but look at also what's going on. You've got the Pluto in the second with K2 and receiving the opposition from Saturn. Who's the ruler of the part of fortune?
It is Mercury, yeah.
And Mercury is applying to whom?
Saturn.
Oh, Saturn.
Saturn. So there's something going on. So that it feels like the Saturn's involved, doesn't it? Which brings us back to what you were just saying. Now note, what houses does Saturn rule?
Fourth house.
And what does the fourth house represent?
Home.
Who would you not
3
be?
and 4. Yeah.
Who would you not be
Having home.
independent from? Who would you not be independent from?
The
Parents.
fourth house is the father.
Parents.
Also
Yeah.
siblings too. It's the third house in this chart as well. Whole family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
third and fourth.
Whole
Mhm,
family.
parents.
So probably siblings and parents.
Yes, right. So they're probably kind of embroiled. Maybe the money's embroiled too, right? So ultimately, if they're talking about finding the ultimate, because does this look like a chart that can make money? Yeah,
It looks
Yeah.
like a chart that gets money, whether they make
Yeah.
it, not less sure. But it looks like
Right,
if they receive money from
inheritance.
other people, there's strings attached,
inheritance. Yeah, inheritance possibly other
inheritance.
people.
but with a
Yes.
controlling family, I think.
Yeah, I like both. I like both of those. There could be a possible inheritance, and there also is probably a controlling family, controlling their thinking, right? Controlling their thinking, their way of operating. The ruler of the ascendant is where and doing what?
It's right up
It's
there.
the ninth house.
In Gemini. So it looks like
Gemini.
we've got what would be
Or-
called an assembly.
Wow.
Yep.
7.
Yeah.
Right? Mercury, Saturn, Venus, Mars. We've got an assembly within 15, it's within 9 degrees, right? Venus is directly applying to the Mars. Venus and Mars have just left the Saturn, and Mercury is applying to the Saturn. So Saturn is the center of all of that, isn't he? And he's
Mhm.
involving Mercury, who's the
Yeah.
ruler of the part of fortune, and he's involving Mars, who's the ruler of the ascendant.
Yeah.
So it looks like the family more, probably specifically the father, because look at how the son, the significator for father by day is angular.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but look at the 7th, the relationships, 7th house are gonna doesn't look so hot because it's ruled by Venus, which is getting hammered on both sides.
Yes, that's right.
Mhm.
She certainly is. She certainly is getting hammered by both sides, and she's ruler of the 12th. There we go. This
Yeah.
person's codependent. This person can't give up on relationships, right? It's the 7-12 thing, right? This person's obsessed with relationship and probably can't let other people down and worried about what other people think of them and all of that
Yeah,
kind of
the
thing.
martyr, not
Right,
in a
so-
cute.
Exactly. So their relational ability might be part of the problem. Their that's the vritti. The vritti is represented by this system, this assembly here.
Yeah, there's a
That's why
lot of water, moon.
But the
Water.
assembly's happening in air. Right,
No,
this-
but I was gonna ask,
Yeah.
is Jupiter's in Cancer by then, but where is Mars also? No, it must be still
Oh,
in Gemini.
Mars is a Gemini. Yeah, Mars
Yeah.
is the edge of the assembly, right? So really, we've only got 2 planets in water signs. We've got Jupiter and Moon. Yeah, Maria.
Also the
Oh,
Jupiter and Moon, they're in mutual reception.
Indeed, they are. Now let's see, 5th and
Yeah.
9th house. That's why I'm saying if this person can get independent, if he
Yep.
can cut the cord, she can cut the cord, then they will be able to make money. This chart can make money.
So I heard from another astrologer that one of the ways you could tell dependence versus independence was like the left versus the right side of the chart. So just glancing at the chart, you see that it's super heavy on the right, then that
Right.
would be correct. That would make them more dependent and more independent on the left because
That's right.
okay.
Yeah,
Wait,
no,
where does
that's-
that come from?
It's modern.
Really?
It's modern shit, but it pans out. Yeah, so basically.
It
what
pans
they're saying-
out.
It does.
Pans
It's
out in
funny,
my
but it
case as
pans
well,
out.
yeah.
No, I'm not saying I disagree. I'm curious because I've heard like
Yeah.
1 through 6. I've heard like top and bottom, but not like left and right before.
It's, yeah, so it's similar to that.
The
So-
same person told me about top and bottom, so I was just curious, but I've been testing it because I'm skeptical. But it works for this one.
No, it's panning out. It pans out. And it makes sense because think about the angles. Think about it this way. Instead of thinking about it top, bottom, left, right, think about the angles that are being surrounded.
Ah, yeah.
That's why.
Mhm.
That's why it pans out. It doesn't pan out because of, whatever bullshit they say. Or rather, the bullshit that they say is based on the angles, right?
Mhm.
If everything is towards the west, then we're focused on others. If everything is towards the east, we're focused on ourselves. If everything is in the south, we're focused on what we can do with our life. If everything's in the north, then we're focused on our home and on what's going on inside the world. Inside our world, not outside of the outside world, which is the south. Right. So that's a very good point.
But how is
and-
the okay? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And how's what? No, go ahead.
Well,
Go ahead.
how is the house of like relationships about yourself?
The house of relationships about yourself.
Like, how is
What do
the
you-
7th?
It's
Do you have it
not.
backwards? Is it the left
You have it
side that's about
backwards.
you?
Yeah, you have
Well,
it
then how
backwards.
is
Yeah.
the 11th about yourself?
The 11th, because it's east.
Independence.
Anything is about east
East,
is about
yeah.
right. So think about, remember what I said this morning about how the opera singer said the career just took over. And when the career takes over, life is all about you. It ain't about your family. It ain't about your children. It's about you and your career. That's the 10th house and the 11th house. That's how the 10th house and the 11th house can represent you. The most egotistical people you will know are the most successful in their jobs. The most self-centered people are the ones who are the most successful in their jobs because the job is giving them all of their identity. Nothing else is. Even if they're good people. I mean, this woman herself, it was Joan Sutherland who said it. Joan Sutherland is a wonderful lady. They didn't have children. I don't think maybe she did have children, but I mean, if she could have been a family homebody, she would have. But as she said, the career just took over, and before you knew it, it was all about me. So maybe we can say the difference between the southeast quarter and the northeast quarter, it's because it's really more about that. It's really about what's different about the southeast quarter, which is all about me in the world, and the northeast quarter, which is about me at home, or me in the nest, or me, behind closed doors. That's the difference. I mean, think of it this way too. Remember how I'm always talking about this because this is so important. I always say it, whenever you watch something on television and they talk about somebody who died before their time, they say what? This was a person with hopes and dreams. Your hopes and dreams can get in the way of your relationships. If my dream has been always to be a movie star, but I'm in this great relationship with this guy, but he's not on the same track as I am, I'll leave that motherfucker and follow my dream. That's the 11th house.
Okay.
Right? If he can't get with the program, or have you ever heard of the movie or / book Prick Up Your Ears? Prick Up Your Ears. Fascinating book. It's actually a biography about the playwright Joe Orton, who he became famous in the mid-60s. He wrote plays in the style of Pirandello and Pinter. So in that kind of it was called Theater of the Absurd. And he started as a nobody in university with this really weird guy that nobody really liked, but who taught him everything. Who got him involved in culture, involved in literature, got him involved in everything. And then at some point, Joe Orton became famous, and this guy got left behind, and he killed Joe. He killed Joe Orton. And so the whole thing is about how this relationship happened. And then when Joe Orton was on the precipice of fame, the 11th house to the 10th, this person that he had been with killed him because he couldn't go there with him.
Interesting. So you see 11th as fame. That's interesting.
11th and 10th together.
Together. Okay.
Although I don't see the 11th as fame. I have a technique for fame. I have a specific technique for finding fame that has nothing to do with the 11th or 10th. And it has to do with the part of fortune as an ascendant. But aside from that, a third especially for a woman, right? What do you mean, Shanice? I'm not sure exactly what you're saying. Third for fame, you said, got it. Oh, so we were looking at movie goddesses. We were looking at goddesses. We were looking at the third house and goddess. And that often, now, not all women who are famous are put in this goddess category. And so that's what we were looking at. So we looked at Marilyn Monroe, we looked at Greta Garbo, we looked at Mae West, goddesses. We looked at screen goddesses, and that was the third house. That was the dealing with third house being turned into a deity via that. And you can kind of see it with some of the male actors too, because third house is sex, but it's really obvious in the screen goddesses. Okay, let's go to another chart, see what we can find. Any other questions about this or observations before I go? No. Oops. Did I? All right, now let's go. God damn it. Back. Oh, I hate all my friends. Oh, I like that one. I hate all my friends. I hate all my friends. Shit. I'm not satisfied with these friendships. They seem too dry for me. Who's dry? What planets are dry?
Saturn,
And
the sun,
and
Mars.
and
Mars.
and Mercury.
Well, Mercury
very
can
good.
be. It goes. Which good place for both teams, right?
But his natural temperament is cold and dry.
Cool.
Even though he changes with others, but he like the moon's natural temperament is cold and wet, but she changes too.
Yep.
So this person's worried about dryness in their friendship. So 29 Libra is on the cusp of the 11th. Where's Venus?
It's in Gemini.
But that's not dry. That's
No.
Gemini is
Yeah, but that's-
warm and wet.
It's still like Venus and Gemini. It's a still disconnect, right?
Or well, I mean, but would it be? Maybe maybe it seems like instead what this feels like to me is that this person can't settle down with any friendship.
Yeah, it's
Venus
commitment
is-
phobic.
Commitment phobia, right.
Yeah,
Wings.
exactly.
The sign has wings. So either there's a transitory nature to them or there's a transitory nature to the friendships. Now, where is the ruler of the ascendant? The ruler of the ascendant is Jupiter
Jupiter
retrograde
retrograde.
in Sag.
Yeah,
this-
it's maybe
What?
she's too much for her friends.
I wouldn't say
True.
that. That's a very good possibility. And look at who's leaving the Saturn. I mean the Jupiter. Mars is leaving the
Venus.
square,
Mars is in Venus both.
and
yeah.
Venus too. Mars and Venus both leaving the square. So this person possibly needs more stimulus than anybody can give them.
Hmm.
This person's
Yeah.
a
They have a
stimulus.
Capricorn moon.
But look at how it's in the Saturn's in Leo. So this person might not like people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They have a Capricorn moon. They may just not, their standards may be too high for.
Or
I
they're just
think-
different. They're
I
too
think-
different.
I think that they just can't. They're too in need of stimulation, in need of constant stimulation.
So you're looking
think-
at the Gemini. Yeah.
I'm looking at the Jupiter too. The Jupiter right on the ascendant, and Sagittarius needs it too. I have Sagittarius rising. We need, and so is Layla. We need stimulus. We need
Yeah.
stimulation, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Believe me.
I'm a
Nothing needs-
Sagittarius sun, so I agree.
Okay, right. And it needs to be in the form of stimulating information, stimulating input, conversation. Right. This
Yeah.
person,
You guys like
they might not
bouncing
be able to
around.
keep up. They might not be able to, their friends might not be able to keep up, or they might
Exactly.
they might be changing, what do they call it? What's the word what do they say when you change, you move the goalposts? I think this person moves the goalposts on their friends. It's okay for a while, and then they get bored.
Is there any significance to the fact that the Venus is opposing the moon, and by sign Venus is opposing Jupiter in domicile,
In this
and the
particular
descendant
case,
ruler
in this case, I
the
would not,
sixth-
I would not use the Venus opposing the moon, because the moon is already separated from her. This is really important. Keep that in mind when you're looking at these out of sign things. The moon, there is no opposition between the moon and Venus, because the moon is done. The moon is both left the sign, and she's separated. She's done with her. There ain't nothing happening between the moon and Venus anymore. Now, if it were the moon at 28 and Venus at 3, I would say yes. Why?
Applying.
That's right. Because there's an application and it's within a decent orb. But in this particular case, I wouldn't take that. Venus opposing Pluto, I would take.
Kind of
Yeah, that's a pretty
actually.
exact, that's a pretty exact opposition.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? That's a pretty
Also
exact
the-
opposition. What?
Also, we also discussed once that the ruler of the third is the friends that you have in high school, and the ruler of the 11th is the friends that you make later in your life, or more like alliances. And also the ruler of the third is fallen. It's in Leo.
Ruler of the third is fall in detriment. That's right.
Yeah.
So, and that's also, I call those friends who are like family, right? So
Yeah.
like you said, like the people we went to school with, who tend to know our family as well as we do, and know what
Well,
kind of
so
shit.
in this chart, it's her, it's also the ruler of the ascendant.
It's also the ruler of the Jupiter, or what?
Yeah.
Wait, but third house
It's
ruler
intercepted ruler.
is Saturn.
Jupiter is intercepted ruler, because the third house
Oh,
Oh,
is.
got
I'm
it,
sorry,
got
I-
it. Got it. He is intercepted. Yes, you're right. Okay, thank you. So
There's
yes,
a
you would.
trine. There's an
So that
exact
might,
trine.
it also might be saying something about their sibling, right? So
Yeah.
keep that in mind too. But if we're just looking generally at the 11th house for friends, right? If we're just, that's the house of friends, mind you. But if we're looking at that just generally for friends, then we know this Venus-Pluto thing is difficult. The fact that it's leaving the opposition to Jupiter, who's the ruler of the ascendant. So that's already telling. If there's any kind of wide separating opposition that we should be looking at, it's the opposition between the ruler of the first and the ruler of the 11th, who's the house of friends.
Antoine,
just
quick
as-
question.
Yeah, certainly.
No, quick question. The sixth house, do you ever look at it as hidden competition?
Never.
Joy of Mars, fighter, that kind of,
no.
never?
Never. No, I will see it as activism. I will see it because what I tend to find is people with Mars in the sixth need to hate something. And so they enjoy fighting against something. So I don't necessarily see it as competition, like hidden competition, but I do see it as enmity, or kind of, there are enemies. I do look at the sixth house for enemies, as well as the 7th and the 12th.
So, but the reason why I asked is because the dispositors of both the descendant and third house are in the whole sign sixth.
The dispositor of
And-
the, wait, the dispositor of the third house is Saturn.
Sorry. The dispositor of the third house, and then after Saturn's dispositor, Saturn's dispositor is in the whole sign sixth.
Whole sign
And then
six.
after Mercury, yeah.
I think
So
that
the
might,
sun disposits Saturn,
think
and
that-
then Mercury just from.
Except I think that more means that there's a problem with relationships and possibly school.
Mm. Okay.
Because it's the ruler of the 7th, combusted in the 6th. So no, I wouldn't overlay that at all. I would be seeing this, because already this combusted Mercury is pointing to the possibility of there being problems in relationship. And that the fact that it's in Taurus and Venus is in Aquarius, I mean, Venus is in Gemini and opposing Pluto, and leaving the square of Mars, that's the last aspect she just made, right? So there's relationship problems. There's already interpersonal problems in this chart. There's problems with interpersonal relationships of all kinds in this chart. And part of it has to do with this person is going too fast, needs too much stimulus, a stimulation junkie. Adrenaline, might even be an adrenaline junkie too.
Wait, why is this? What's the problem with the 7th?
The ruler of the 7th is combusted in the natural 6th.
Ah, okay, whole sign. Okay, well, I don't know.
We know that
Okay.
Gemini is not usually a good sign for committed relationships. Committed
Not
relationships is the issue, right? Even though the Mercury is in Taurus, see, it's combust, Venus is in Gemini, she's opposing the Pluto, this person, and she's leaving the square of Mars. So there's going to be arguments. There's going to be, you know, this person needs to go. I just had a client that had Pluto in the 7th, and all of their relationships have made them kind of renovate their way of thinking about each other. This person, the same. They will have similar types of instances with relationships where they'll have to go through negative issues with the relationship, and those things change their way of perceiving themselves.
Garth, if we have time, could you look at a blind chart?
I'm not going to do it, but you all can.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I mean, yeah, you can put the chart forward, but this chart reading practice is for y'all,
Oh, okay.
right? I don't need the practice. I mean, I enjoy the practice, but really it's for you. I want to turn the focus completely with these chart reading things to be on you all, right? And of course, I'll give my perspective and everything, but yeah, but if you put it up there, y'all go at it. Let's see. Lack of fulfillment. I don't want to be alive anymore. Let's give this person a reason for living.
Okay.
Are you actually commenting on the Reddit or is this old?
I mean, no. These are real-time Reddit.
Okay.
What I'll probably do is write to them and say,
You should
hey,
take our comments and write in there.
yeah, well, no, I'm gonna put a link I'm too lazy for that shit. I'm gonna put a link to the video and just say, hey, we talked about your ass.
Oh, that would be even better. Yeah, do that.
Yeah, we talk serious shit about you. Listen in.
Oh, there's so much happening here.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah.
There is.
Okay,
Okay,
so
yeah. So
the-
what do you see? What do you see? Yeah, there's a lot
Okay,
happening.
what I see is that because they said that they don't want to live anymore, so that gives me 12th house themes. And the ruler of the 12th house, Mercury, it's applying a sextile to Venus, the ruler of the ascendant. And also Mercury is applying an opposition to Saturn, a Saturn that is fallen and retrograde. It's
Separated.
directly in
It's
opposition with that.
separating.
Separating, but
It's
still
separating,
very
but it's
close.
still, yeah,
Very close.
pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the ruler
I
of
was
the
just gonna
12th is
say-
involved.
She
And
can get a
Jupiter is
hobby.
Jupiter is fallen and probably retrograde, and it's right on the cusp of the 12th house.
Yeah, no-
That's what I was gonna say. Is the Jupiter
Yeah.
to me is like, oh, that's not good.
not easy, right?
It-
And then they
the
also got,
Jupiter-
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the Jupiter and Venus, they're in an opposition, and also Jupiter is like Venus is exalted, but it's applying an opposition to Jupiter from its exaltation, but towards its fall. Virgo is Venus's fall, so
And they're involved in what do we call that pattern? when a planet is
Yeah,
applying to a planet.
it's deception by, no, it's
Nope.
oh, I forgot the terminology for it.
It's a we're talking about a return of virtue here.
Return of,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Return of virtue because Jupiter and Venus, Jupiter is retrograde, so he can't accept her virtue.
Exactly.
He can't
Yeah.
accept what she pushes onto him. So in this particular case, he's not going to give the Virgo to her. Because he isn't accepting the Pisces from her either. Right? So she's kind of on her own. So we know that this, and we know that now technically, this is a because of the cusp, this is a Placidus chart. So because of the cusp system that we're working with, technically this is a return of virtue with fitness. But if we were looking at this from a whole sign standpoint, this would be a return of virtue with detriment, meaning that anything that is around Venus is going to the only good thing about it is that she's in exaltation.
Hmm.
So
Well, and
Venus
she's in
is-
her house.
well, I mean, she's in the house of her exaltation, right? Oh, you mean she's in her the house of her joy? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But my point is that if it's for a whole sign house, she would be in the 6th. She would no longer be
In
in
whole
that.
sign, yeah, but I mean, we could read it Placidus too, can't we?
Of course we are. No, I'm saying I'm giving both. I am saying both. I'm saying technically she's in the 5th, so this would be a return of virtue with fitness. But if this were a whole sign chart, this would be a return of fitness, a return of virtue with detriment. And we should be able to see what's going on. We should be able to see which of it is actually happening in anything that has to deal with Venus, right? Because so anything that's dealing with Venus, we should get an idea. I want to read the rest of what she said. I haven't felt fulfilled since 2019. Also, whenever I make a friend or something, they end up just not talking to me again for no reason after the first time. Only good thing about my life right now is money.
Ruler
Why?
of the second in domicile.
Yeah.
Of
And angular.
course.
Yeah, an angular, exactly.
Wow.
Right? And angular. So that's the thing that's working. So they have so they're having problems with friends. What's going on with friends? We just looked at the 11th house in the last chart.
Yeah. The ruler of the 11th has fallen.
In detriment, that's right. And
Yeah.
then so what else can fulfill you? So friendships can fulfill you, love can fulfill you. What would be going on with love in this chart?
Yeah, love. It should be strong because Mars is in its own house, but then again, it's Mars.
There we go. Remember that even when a planet is in good condition, it's still going to act like itself, even if it's on good behavior.
Yeah.
Right? Saturn, even when he's in Capricorn and Aquarius, will slow things down. Mars, even if he's in Aries or Scorpio, can cut you or bruise you. Right? Or can cut or bruise. So what I would imagine is that this chart produces relationships that are contentious.
Yeah. What about the sun squaring Mars there? Would that
Sun
also speak to
squaring
that?
Mars. I don't see sun squaring Mars.
Is that not it?
It's separating.
Sun?
Separating. Oh,
Sun's
It's
yeah,
at
it
at
is.
2 degrees.
Sun's at 2. The Mars is at 22.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Chiron is squaring. Chiron is squaring Mars.
Chiron. Oh,
Are we
okay.
doing Chiron?
No, I'm joking.
Oh,
I'm just saying Chiron
that's
is
probably
squaring
what I
Mars.
saw.
Yeah, I'm sure it's what you saw. Yeah, Chiron is squaring, but not
What do you
the-
think of Mars ruling sex?
I don't.
Oh, you don't. That's why. Okay.
Yeah, I don't. Venus rules sex.
I would
Mars
tell
is-
this person to have sex and maybe get a hobby. That's my advice. No, I'm dead serious.
Okay, but no, okay, but go get more into it. Why, and what kind of hobby?
Ruler of the ascendant is Venus in its house of joy, in its sign of exaltation.
Hmm.
I see, but we just established that there's a problem with this Venus. The opposition to the Jupiter is a problem. What was the
Yeah.
other thing that you said? Oh, the ruler of
Wait,
the
wait, wait.
12th. The ruler of the
If-
12th is applying to the Venus.
I think if like, can this be like even if she does indulge in 5th house themes, she'd have to be cautious about it because it's Jupiter and it can be detriment.
Wait a
Like-
minute. Wait.
Like, the
Who
axis of
is
it
the
can be
ruler?
detriment.
Who is the ruler of the fifth house? What's on the cusp of the fifth?
It's Saturn.
Saturn.
Oh,
Okay, so then Jupiter isn't the fifth house ruler. Now, and who's right there? And look at the moon. This person has a hard time enjoying themselves. Note that there is a generosity between Saturn and the moon.
Yeah, but the thing about Mercury, you're saying, okay, Jupiter I see as a potential impediment, but I don't think it's enough to overcome the value of having like a hobby. Mercury, I don't see the problem other than it being the ruler of the natural 12th because it's not in bad condition.
It's
angular.
Anything that's the 12th, anything connected to the 12th is going to bring your self-undoing at you. This
Yeah, but
person-
that's like like connection by, I don't know.
But look, we can tell already this person wants to die. Who's the ruler of death?
Saturn.
Who's the ruler of death?
Saturn.
Saturn. Mercury is in Capricorn. Come on.
I
This
don't
person
see that
wants
as
to
enough of
die.
a reason. In fact, I feel like
Mercury wants,
associating
and
Mercury
she's
with
and Mercury
in
just left the
Capricorn with
opposition.
death is
And
is
Mercury
kind of-
just
yes,
left the
because then-
opposition to Saturn. Mercury just left the opposition to Saturn.
Saturn
Mercury
is
in
Saturn is
sign.
retrograde, right?
And Saturn is retrograde. I mean, this,
Fallen.
it says plenty. This
Yeah.
Mercury is not in good condition.
I don't see that.
What? So wait, what are you looking at? What do you see?
I just don't think, I think in this, it's the ruler of the 12th thing is being kind of overestimated as being malefic when it's not necessarily so. The condition of Saturn is yes.
The 12th house is never not malefic. It's the house of self-undoing. There's no way it can't not be malefic. The 12th house is never not malefic. It doesn't matter.
I just think
whose
that's a
planet
little
is.
bit a bit of an overgeneralization.
Well, let's look at, you know what, let's look at everybody's 12th house then. So let's look at your 12th house. We've spent a lot of time talking about your particular 12th house. So we already
Yeah.
know, right? And it's the same for all of us. It's everybody's blind spot. It's everybody's area that can fuck them over. And it's applying to the ruler of the first. They're going to, so that could be false friends and it's also our thinking. This is why I'm actually putting the focus on the ruler of the 12th. Mercury is our thinking. Mercury and the moon are the way that we think. Saturn is ruler of the moon. Saturn is opposing the Mercury. This person is depressive. This person
Yeah.
right? This person is depressive. Their thinking is fucked. That
And
means
12th itself rules like mental illnesses. So I could see that. And she's saying she wants, or they are saying they want to end their lives. So that kind of makes
yeah,
sense.
this person wants to end their life. They're at the end of their rope. They are not fulfilled. They are empty. All of that stuff is Saturn. And Mercury is in a Saturn ruled sign. Mercury is the culprit. This is important. I'm being so emphatic about it because this is important. Things often don't look negative, but they are. And things
But you don't
sometimes
see that it could
look positive.
happen the other way, that if you read it too negative, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
No, not at all, because you don't have to fulfill anything. It's already happening. What do I say? People are already in their vritti. Everybody has a built-in 12th house. Everybody's in a vritti. Everybody's experiencing something they're not happy with. Everybody. And everybody fucks themselves over. Everybody sabotages themselves in some area. If they don't sabotage themselves in some area, it's in another. Everybody. So no, I don't think I'm overestimating especially not in this chart. Certainly not in
But
this
why
chart.
are you saying it's Mercury, not Saturn?
Because Saturn is the ruler of Mercury. I am saying it's Saturn. Saturn and
Okay.
Mercury are in an opposition.
Okay, no, I get it better now.
Remember, as I said, we're never just looking at one planet. We are always looking at the local determination of a planet, which means we're not looking at Mercury. We're looking at a Saturn opposition square Venus. So every time anything that has to do with Mercury comes up in this chart, it's Mercury opposing Saturn. It's square sextile Venus every time. So that means when the 9th house comes up, it's Mercury's opposing Saturn. When the 12th house comes up, it's Mercury opposing Saturn. Does that sound like it's in a good condition? No. That's my point. And so and also when we've got the ruler of any house connected to the ruler of the first house, we're going to have that thing's going to show up. That thing is going to make its effect very specifically on us. It's the
You're talking about the
most,
sextile?
it's the sextile. It's the closest aspect in the chart. It's the closest applying aspect in the chart. Is from the ruler. And so just because it's happening from a sextile doesn't mean it's not bad. And note also that Venus rules the 8th of death. So she rules not
Yeah,
only
but this
the
doesn't
first of
really
life.
like, it doesn't really help the person. What would you suggest that they do then?
Well, we haven't gotten there yet, right? We're still figuring out what the problem is.
Got it.
So now now put the question back on yourselves. I'm not answering it. Would you say Mars and Moon are in best condition in this chart? I would say Mars is in the best condition in this chart.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you can find someone to
I'd
argue
say
with.
that too.
Yeah, so what does this person need? What's a reason for living for this person?
The money and the financial situation, like the
Well, but
prosperity.
it didn't help them. That's not helping them, right? They mentioned it, right? They said everything.
Wait,
They
They
said
mentioned they have it and they still don't want to live or whatever.
that's right. That's what I'm saying. It's not helping. That's not helping. What kind of
Relationship,
That's
probably.
what some of that they're looking for. That's probably what they're talking about. Yeah. Venus is the ruler of the ascendant.
Yeah, Venus is the ruler of
I
the
mean, would it be a
ascendant.
stretch?
So
Sorry.
What?
I would think relationship. I don't know.
So then what might be the problem? So there's so what might be the interpersonal problem, right? They said that when they have a friend, that the person stops talking to them. Why? And then what would we tell them to do?
It's the Mars in the Aries, so probably like, I mean, we probably can tell them to lower their Martian tendencies if they have any. And also, if it's a stretch, I don't know if it's a stretch or anything, but if we are considering Mars to be the best planet in this chart, can we also look at the houses? Like, I'm asking a general question. Can we look at the houses where Mars is exalted so we can channel that energy as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Yes, you
so
absolutely can.
so it's the 4th house, and it's the 2nd house, and it's the 7th house.
Okay. So
That can
what would
work
you
for
tell
them.
them?
I mean, if we are going generally, then I think I'd say to focus more on the roots and put more effort into their relationships and into like building a house for themselves, quote unquote, rather than finances. But that, I don't know.
Okay. Kabir,
I'm not too confident about this. Okay.
I mean, it doesn't matter. We're all spitballing. We can't really get
Yeah, of course.
confirmation, right? We can't really get confirmation. We can just play at it. I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, remembering what we talked about, where ultimately the 5th, 11th axis is supposed to be a panacea for the client, in my opinion. Now, I don't necessarily always do this, but we do talk about how if a person is depressed, go to their 5th. They're probably more detached. And what is this whole? Would you say? Oh, wait, 1 second. Sorry, hold on. Career, in my opinion, they are probably more detached and critical than they realize. With Moon and Sun in Aquarius and Jupiter in Virgo, ascendant ruler in the 6th house of bad fortune, they could feel like a victim. Yeah, I agree with that, Shanice, and I also think that I think they might be a little dull. They might actually be a little dull and a little aggressive. And
Yeah,
that might,
I thought that telling them not to be so aggressive in their relationships, maybe, because
yes.
having Mars there in Aries seems like that would be a problem.
And note, once again, we have another relatively close applying aspect, Moon to Mars. Right?
Yes.
Moon's in Aquarius, which is, like you said, is kind of cold, can be kind of chilly, but can be kind of pedantic and dull.
Really? I associate it with intellect.
It can be smart, but it can be pedantically smart.
Yeah.
Right. So because we're, once again, remember, we're not looking at Aquarius as ruled by Uranus. So where it would be interesting and different and blah, blah, blah. We're looking at it as ruled by Saturn, fixed air by Saturn. And
Yeah,
so that fixed
The
ideas.
meaning of the sign is water bearer. It literally has to do with disseminating knowledge.
But it doesn't have to be good knowledge. And it can
No,
be
it
knowledge
doesn't.
that
It
nobody else
doesn't.
wants.
It doesn't even have to
And
be
it could
like
be knowledge,
quested
and it could be
knowledge.
knowledge nobody else wants. You could be pouring poison
Exactly.
water onto the ground, right? And
Yeah.
so this could be the case in this chart. It could be pouring poison water, right? Mars rules Scorpio, which is the poison. It could be pouring poisonous water. Is this person meant to experience close romantic and platonic relationships? What do you think? I'm going to put the question back on y'all.
I'd tell them to enlist.
Enlist. That's an interesting question. Interesting. But
Mars.
but tell me something. Would the order and all the regimentation of the military be a good thing for this chart?
Yes, because they lack it. It's remediation for Saturn too.
I don't
But
know.
they're
I think it would
Libra
kill it.
rising. I don't think it would work.
It would kill them. I think it would kill them. I think it would be just the
Yeah.
opposite. It would crush their spirit completely.
Yeah, I
No,
think
I
the
think they
Libra
can handle
rising
it. I
would
think
not.
someone like this needs someone to argue with.
Libra rising with Venus and Pisces. No, they don't need somebody to argue with.
I disagree.
I mean, you're looking at the Mars as the ruler of in Aries. They'll attract arguments.
No, I'm looking at the sun too, sort of a contrarian Aquarius, Uranus with Venus, the moon in Aquarius.
How about the critical degrees 22 at Mars?
What did you say?
The critical degrees of 22 degrees
What?
at Mars?
So where did you hear about the critical degree of 22? Where did you hear about that?
That's when my astrology teacher told me that it might not be good.
So that sounds like degree theory from what's his name, Stoyanovich, and we don't use that. So I would not take that into account at all. And also, here's the other thing: the 22nd degree is between 2101 and 2200. This Mars is in the 23rd degree.
Oh, so they're safe.
So that's the other thing. I personally, I do not think that there is anything to that degree theory. That's me personally. I haven't met anybody who's made it work. I haven't seen anybody who's been in the least bit convincing around it. And Stoyanovich is the only one. He created it, and he's the only one who really does it. So I don't really put anything in that one at all. Like other things I'll give you because I know people are making them work, but I haven't seen anybody make this work. And if anything, it just makes people anxious and scared. Oh, I've got such and such in the 18th degree, and I have to come and say, oh, look here, there's Mars and this Jupiter here. So somebody would say, I've got my Jupiter in the 18th degree in the 12th house. Am I gonna die? And it's like, well, first of all, it's in the fucking 19th degree. And secondly, how can a degree, right? We've been talking about stacking, thing upon thing upon thing upon thing. How can it one degree determine, your life, whether or not you're going to die or not? So that's a long way of saying, no, I would not consider the critical degree aspect for the 22. Now there are. Say that again. Go ahead.
Say you wanted to look in more detail at a placement. Do you use things like bounds, terms?
Yeah, well, the thing is that there is medieval degree theory. So,
Okay.
and I talk about that in the original traditional astrology course, a new look at the zodiac. But there are degrees that are fucked. There are degrees that are better. There are degrees that are sick. There are degrees that are pitted. So there's all kinds of stuff like that we could look at that has been in use. What I'm basically just saying is that I don't have any faith in the Stoyanovich system, which is what she just brought up. But if we
have
wanted
history of usage for the medieval stuff.
Absolutely, yeah, no, but like I said, we wanted to, we could, and we can do a whole thing based on nothing but the medieval degree theory. But and I have seen it work out. As a matter of fact, I remember when I was still friends with what's his face, he had shown me the chart of somebody that he knew, and it really showed up in this chart quite well. So there is degree theory that I do believe works. It just doesn't belong to Nicholas Stoyanovich, in my opinion. So we're still trying to figure out what reason for living this person can have. First thing I want to say though is this. The very first thing I would probably do is I would address their thinking. I would address their thinking and their self-talk, because more than likely they might overinflate their ability. They might give away too much of themselves. I'm looking at the Jupiter now from all the things I'm saying. But they might not be able to see themselves in a very clear way, which makes them overpromise, extend themselves, make themselves more than they actually are, or make themselves less, or feel the need to be more when they're that's probably what's really happening. This need to feel like more than I am. This person feels like very little, right? The Jupiter wants to go big, but it can't because it's in Virgo in retrograde. And then the Mercury. So I would be really kind of attacking their small talk, not attacking, but addressing their self-talk, because more than likely they're not. And then when they realize that they don't measure up, then the Mercury Saturn would show itself and or feels attacked, true, or it would feel, but I think that this person is victimized by not feeling enough. They don't feel like enough, and it makes them not want to live. It makes them not want to live. They don't feel like they're enough. They don't feel like their thinking doesn't support them. They're judging themselves in their thinking all the time. Remember, Jupiter is the judge. Saturn also is a harsh taskmaster, right? Then he's with that Mercury. So I think that that's what's going on in this chart. This person has a harsh taskmaster, high standards that they themselves realize that they can't actually live up to. And then what happens is they want to die. And they're looking, obviously it's a Libra rising chart and Venus is exalted. So they're really looking to escape that feeling through relationship. But they get into the relationship, especially they get into the major relationships, then Mars shows up and there might be contentions and anger and that kind of problem. And then also there may be an issue with them not really being that stimulating a person to be in contact with. And this might be part of the problem for it. So what I would probably say is you've got to combat your way of thinking and your way of thinking about yourself. And maybe it might have something to do with how they look too. They might be judging themselves based on their looks. It's Libra rising, right? And Mercury is touching the ruler of the first. And especially if they're not attracting relationships like you wanted, right? This is a Venus ruled chart. So this person's preoccupied with relationships, but the Mars is there, which means that they cut themselves every time they do. So ultimately, this person, what I would basically say is the first thing you have to do is to get your mind together, stop the negative thinking, stop judging yourself, stop measuring yourself against others, right? Libra is always looking to other people to complete themselves. Stop looking to others to complete yourself. Now that I've said all that, what do they have to live for?
Antoine, before we go on to that, can you just go over why again you said that they might not be that stimulating?
In my opinion, the moon, the Mercury opposing Saturn. Saturn is a mute sign. Saturn is in connection with moon, right? So the moon moon and Saturn are in generosity, right? So they're exchanging signs. Saturn is dull. Saturn is pedantic. This person might speak slowly. This person might speak slowly, might be a little bit too painstaking, might not be quick to laugh. This person, even though it's a Libra rising chart with Venus exalted, the moon's in Aquarius. Mercury is in Capricorn. Saturn is retrograde and in Cancer. This person may be having problems even finding things funny. So this could be the kind of person where you're hanging out with them, you make some kind of quip and it either goes over their head or they immediately go to something else, or go back to some subject matter that is not as enjoyable or fun. And every time you try to make a joke, you've been with people like that. Every time you try to make a joke, they don't get it, or they don't respond, or they don't whatever. I think that's this person. So what would we tell them about that if that indeed were the case? What would we say about that? Because when people complain about shit like this, I always look at how they could be the problem. Right? Because everybody, it's always coming from outside as far as we're concerned. But we as the astrologer need to see if indeed it's coming from within or from outside.
Yeah.
Or both. And of course, what's coming from inside can affect what comes from outside too, right? I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was saying the exact same thing, that in this chart, like basically what we've seen is that what's happening inside her head is more problematic for her than probably what's happening with her, like on the outside.
Yeah, so it's probably worse than what she's upset about.
Exactly.
Right? So this person's upset about kind of how they're getting fulfilled from the outside, but really the problem is their thinking and their judgment and their internal standards. That's my feeling. That's my feeling. Is that that's what's really going on here. And then, like I said, I don't think this person might be the most stimulating, and could also be a little bit aggressive in the way that they deal with people, because look at how the moon is going to the sextile to Mars. Right? So they might unconsciously be a little bit blunt, a little bit, and they might be a little bit impatient with frivolity. That's what this is. This chart is not, even though Venus is exalted, this chart has problems with what they perceive to be frivolous.
So in support of that, the degree of the ascendant has more essential dignity in Saturn than it does in Venus.
All right, there we go. Is it daytime though? It's not daytime.
No, so it doesn't matter.
Well, it kind of does.
Exaltation and then through the bounds, it adds up to more than Venus.
Bam, all right, that's what I was.
That's why I said that degree. I looked at the whole thing.
Yeah, I was wondering. I just wanted to be sure you were including the triplicity ruler. Great.
Yeah, and you flip it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So yeah, so that means that definitely already. So this is what I was saying on Thursday, is that, hey, just because somebody's the ruler doesn't mean they're the winner. Now, in this particular case, we would push them away from Saturn as much as we can. The problem is that we can't, because
sorry, Antoine, repeat really quickly again. Why is this person annoyed with the frivolous? Where'd you get that?
Oh, because Saturn is into the ponderous and heavy, and Moon is in Capricorn. I mean, in Aquarius, and Mercury is in Capricorn.
Got it. So the thoughts and the speech directed by Saturn. Okay, sorry, keep going.
Everything that has to do with mentation is all about Saturn. Which is where I was coming. What we would try to do in this chart is we would push them to being more Venusian, but they can't escape the Saturn, because remember, our significators for soul are Mercury and Moon, and both are ruled by Saturn. And one of them is opposing Saturn. This is why I was so adamant about the fact that it was Mercury and that he was the problem. So this chart has an issue. So what I would, so I'm going to answer the question. What I would probably do is I would focus on this Venus, but I would make it really specific. I would focus in two ways. This chart has the same generosity between the Moon and Saturn as Arthur Rubinstein. I would tell them to start studying piano or start studying an instrument. I would tell them to study an instrument. I think in that, because there's the Venus, the music, but it would also be something pedantic and slow and painstaking. And then they could also they could also hold a standard and then get themselves to it. So it's something that they could come to master, and the mastery over it, in my opinion, would create a new opinion of themselves.
Also, if they could like join an orchestra and then build relationships through the music.
Oh, there we
other
are.
people like that.
There we are. Or some kind of ensemble, any kind of ensemble, right? Not
Yeah,
just an
any
orchestra.
kind of ensemble of musicians that all have kind of that mentality.
So maybe then at some point we could even say, once COVID is over, they could think about joining a choir. Even look at the ruler of the second house is in its own sign in an angle with others. This person needs to master something in order to not feel like nothing.
Yeah, and probably something creative because of the Libra ascendant, I would think.
Exactly. But they think that they need relationships to fulfill them. That's the unspoken thing in the title. That's why they stipulated already. Money's not a problem. Don't mention money. Money's not a problem. But they wouldn't stipulate what is the problem, which is that, or they did kind of intimate it, I can't keep any friends, right? So
Looking for friends in the wrong places.
yeah, or I mean, here's the thing. Maybe this person's obsessed with a certain thing that they like to talk about all the time. Fixed air with the moon. They might try, and so maybe that if they got into music like this, then they being around other musicians, they could talk about that thing all the time. Love them that, oh my God, they might be trying to be the head honcho in their relationships, mastering. Yeah, they're more than likely. Now, you were talking about competition. I would definitely see competition in the 7th house here. Because their Mars in the 7th, it would be vying for power. It would be power plays, vying for power, arguments, challenges, tournaments and challenges and that kind of thing could certainly happen in the 7th, right? Because and think of what we call finding a relationship. We call it the chase. So you might even find that this person is much more into the chase than they are into, or that the chase is more enjoyable than the relationship itself. I won't say that they're into it, but that they, and not that they enjoy the chase more, but that the chase itself is very enjoyable. And then the relationship brings out all the Mars, uncomfortable Mars aspects. But it can approach, but it can, it should be able to bring relationships in. It just might not be able to sustain them because of the malefic influence of Mars. Any other comments or, go ahead. Somebody gonna say something? No? Okay. So that was an interesting one, and we'll definitely, what was that person's name? We'll see if we can find them. Come on. Yeah. This is Wide Rate. Oh, so when I'll be sure and look for them. Wide Rate 3997. All right. We'll look for them and tell them that we spent quite a bit of time on their chart, and hopefully they won't be too they won't be offended by some of the things that we said. All right, let's look at another one. If you want to put the blind chart in too, Layla, you're welcome to. Let's see. I don't care about that one. I need help with some career. Oh, we haven't done a career options chart. Now, I hate it when they write in asking for career options because they really should be paying somebody for it. And the last thing, I mean, I know that there's some decent astrologers on Reddit, but the last thing I would really do is trust internet strangers to tell me what would be the best career for me. But here we are, internet strangers about to do that very thing. So what do we think? First of all, what do we do to figure it out? Do you remember what we've been doing?
To figure out the problem?
Well, the problem is what career should I deal with?
Okay, so career is the 10th house.
But that's not when we've been looking at the naughty career, what have we been doing?
Yeah, we looked at the Lot of Fortune.
We've looked at a bunch of things, right?
Yeah, among
Ruler of the
those was
second?
Lot of Fortune.
What's that? I'm sorry, say that again. Say that again.
Ruler of the second.
That's more for substance than for career. So if let me get the Bonatti and then we'll bring it back up. So when we looked at career, Bonatti, the very first thing that Bonatti did was he looked to see what planets were in angles.
Oh
So the
yeah,
very
advancing.
remember
Yeah.
the
Right,
first
right.
thing that he looked at was what is there a planet in the first house? Because then use that. Remember?
I would
And then
still
the
look at
second
all
thing
of them,
was
but okay.
right. And so remember, keep that in mind, because that's the technique that we're kind of looking at to figure this out for them. Because remember, we just did the 10th house, and what was it that I decided that I thought that the 10th house ruler really did? Do you remember? Remember, I said that I thought that it looked like that the 10th house showed the substance that they bring to their career.
Yeah.
So they bring a certain substance to it. It's not we had decided that we cannot rely specifically on the sign, on the midheaven or the planet to tell us what the actual career is, but that it does show us the substance, what the career tends to be made of. I'm looking for this. Hold on. Oh, I'm in the wrong one. That's why I can't find it. Okay. It's is it 10th house in career, or what was it? 10th. Wait, it's further up. 6th, 9th. But in the meantime, go ahead and look at the 10th house and tell me what you're seeing. I'm looking for something else. I'm not looking at the moment.
Okay, so the ruler of the 10th is Jupiter retrograde. That's not too promising, but it's in the second house. Also the malefic of the sect is there, Mars.
Okay.
What else? Mercury is in Libra. Okay. Saturn is also retrograde and very near to the second house, but okay, that's third. Okay, Jupiter can also be the intercepted ruler of the first.
Okay.
And it's also in the second house.
Okay, I'm gonna switch away from it for a second so we can look at these rules one more time. So this is to find the significator of the profession, right? Which is what this person said. What profession should I be involved in? This is why he should be paying, right? Look at how much work we have to do to figure this out. So look at the ascendant. That's the first thing. If nothing's in the ascendant, then you do what? You look at the 10th, nothing in the 10th, you look at the 7th, nothing in the 7th, look at the 4th, right? If you don't find a planet in any of those, then what do? Then you look at the rulers of the angles. So let's just start with those 4 things for right now. So the first thing we would do is we would look to see if there's anything in the first. There is not. Then we would look to see if there's anything in the 10th. Mars is in the 10th. Then we would look to see if there's anything in the 7th. Venus is in the 7th. Now we wouldn't have to really continue after that. Mars is in the 10th, so that would make enough sense. But we see that indeed Venus is in the 7th. Yeah. So we would use either Mars or Venus, ultimately, is what he would say. Let's see if he says anything else about once we find them and what we think. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So he keeps going down the line saying, if it's not them, look at this. If it's not them, look at this. If it's not them, look at this. So if you were to find one of the planets in which the 2 or 4 accidents could be said. So it's either in an angle and there's something else. It could be either in an angle or it could be aspecting the moon, right? Who she first joined to. So let's see if the Mars is aspecting the moon. Well, the moon is there is no aspect. Mars is in Sagittarius at 9. The moon is at what's the word I'm looking for? Is in Capricorn at 13. Now, if we were to take Mars as a possible career, what would that be?
Mars as a career would be all the Martian things like
Like,
um I don't know, army.
well, I mean, well, what are Mars professions? This is a great thing. We can just kind of go
Chef.
through. Chef, and especially when Mars is in a fire sign like this, right?
Of course. Yeah.
So a chef.
Plus, you can
so-
be self-employed if you believe that whole like fire sign 10th thing, where you don't like want to have a boss necessarily.
maybe so. Shanice says they would need to work with fire. So it could also be a fireman. So it could be a fireman. What's she say? Be a leader, use fire or tools. Remember that Mars rules iron. So any kind of smithing, we don't use ironsmiths very much anymore. But we still have iron workers, right? There are still people who are iron workers, and this is fire. So it could be somebody who does work with iron. Notice that Venus also, who is in the angle, she also is in a fire sign. Who's the ruler of the 10th ruler is Jupiter, who's in Taurus. Taurus is ruled by Venus, who's in Leo, who's in a fire sign. So both of these planets that are in angles are pointing to fire, are pointing to something that works with fire. I like very much the idea of cooking for this Mars, or being a fireman. The fact that now I'm gonna cheat just a second here and say, since the moon is the ruler of the 6th house, but not of work, but of duties, it can also that, in my opinion, that confirms cooking. That confirms, in my opinion, chefing or cooking.
Did you talk about natural second too?
I didn't yet. Go ahead.
Well, just that I don't know if you actually buy this. This might just be a modern astrology thing, but like Taurus, I associate with like food and eating and like sensual pleasure. And if the ruler of your 2nd house, how you make your money, is Jupiter in Taurus, I could see it there too.
Okay, so first of all, this is sounding a little bit like zodiac alphabet, but I don't. It doesn't mean I don't like it. It works only in one way. Food and eating is the 2nd house. Okay, so because it's the mouth and what goes into the throat. Because Taurus and the 2nd house both rule the throat. But
Yeah, but it's also how you make your money, right?
That's right. It's also how you substantiate. That's where it doesn't have anything to do with Taurus, right? Because Taurus is all about the pleasure of the senses. So what
No,
house?
I was saying the ruler of the 2nd is Jupiter.
I understand. No, I
Okay.
get what you're saying. No, I get what you're saying.
Then I guess I don't get what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just doing an exegesis for how Taurus does not fit with the 2nd house fully. So that's all. I'm not.
Got it. Yeah.
I just went off on a
Accidental association, not
Yes,
like
I
because
went
they're
off
the
on a
same.
tangent. Yeah, I just went off.
Sorry.
I went off on a tangent because of what you said. You're like, hey, I associate the 2nd house with blah blah blah, and both of those things.
No. I just said Taurus with food, and I don't know. I didn't know if that was modern. I wasn't even thinking of
It
it
is
being-
modern. It is modern, but the 2nd house is food. That's my
Got
point. And so
Yeah.
it's modern because they put Taurus on the 2nd house, and the 2nd house is food. But Taurus is the enjoyment of any food. You see, because Taurus is the enjoyment of the senses.
Yeah, but in order to be a good chef, you have to enjoy food.
Well, or at least you have to have a good palate and a good sense of taste, which is a little bit different.
I mean, come on.
Right? You don't have to enjoy food to be a great cook. You have to have a great palate to be a good cook. Right? There are chefs that don't enjoy food. Right? There are chefs that don't enjoy good food. They love to make good food for other people. They love to feed other people. They love to create great, creations or whatever, but they themselves couldn't give a shit about food, or they themselves have an eating disorder.
That's interesting. Well, having an eating
worked with
disorder
a
doesn't
chef.
mean you're free from the pleasure of food.
Oh,
But I
it
would
was.
say
No, I worked with a chef who was, because I used to work back at the house, and I worked with a chef who had an eating disorder.
I worked hospitality for like 10, 15 years.
And what did you find?
that everyone I worked with back of house was into food. And it
Yeah,
didn't
but
have to mean that they were like complete gluttons or anything. Some of them were, some of them weren't. Some of them were more interested in the technical aspect, but you had to enjoy food in order to do it. Because it's
It was
kind
the-
of,
it was the
it's a
aesthetic
hard
of food.
job.
It is.
Hard,
It's
low
the,
paying job. So like you don't do it for money. You do it because you
No.
like it. I don't know chefs who don't. Yeah.
absolutely. No, absolutely. My point is that some chefs are not into the food itself, but into the aesthetic of the food. They're into feeding other people. That's the difference. There are some chefs that are into feeding other people. This chef that I worked with couldn't give a shit about what she ate, but she loved feeding other people. She loved creating sumptuous, amazing meals for others. She herself didn't care. I mean, she was into food in that she was into all the information around food. She was into what the best ingredients went together. She was into food, but she herself didn't really enjoy eating. That's my point. She didn't really enjoy eating, but yes, she was into food. So I agree with you. Anybody who's doing that work is into food. The whole reason that I did that work was so I would always have something to eat.
Dig it.
So Shanice here said something. I know a dental hygienist with a very strong Mars in Scorpio, second trine moon in Cancer. Is there a moon Wait, so where was that connected to, Shanice? Where did that come up? But Mars also, so actually the answer that I was looking for, where I asked what kind of careers are Mars careers, I was looking for doctor or surgeon, medicine. Does this chart indicate medicine?
When we
Good.
did the sixth house themes, we saw Mars. I think we saw Mars. We saw something related to the sixth house. I
We
can't
did.
recall if it was
We
Mars
did.
in
We
the
did.
sixth or it was Scorpio, the sign in the sixth.
Shanice, moon is not in the same sign as Mars. Moon is in Capricorn. Mars is in Sagittarius. Or is it? Is it?
Wait, is it?
Hold on,
I
let me
thought
go
it
down.
was in
Let me go down.
Sag too.
Sorry, my fault. For some reason, it looked like it was in Capricorn. My fault. You're absolutely right then. Thank you. Thank you, Shanice.
I don't know
my-
who
my-
said this, but I could totally see fire for this chart. Like Sag being
Firefighter.
musical fire. To me, very like wildfires. that
I
you need
could
to go
see
put out.
nurse.
Well,
Is
could
there any
be-
connection?
Well, based on that, it could be someone working as an emergency doctor, like an EMT.
They move around. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I could
Totally.
also see nurse especially if there's any connection between moon and Mars. I mean, moon and Jupiter. Is there anything between moon and Jupiter?
Well, it's in its sign of exaltation. And then
But
Jupiter is in its sign of
there's kind of a
domicile.
there's a weird reception, isn't there?
Yeah.
Without any kind of aspect.
But
a weird
Jupiter
kind
is
of reception.
retrograde.
Yeah, I think nursing. I think like triage nursing, or like I think that this person could see really like could even be a war nurse or a war medic.
Ruler of
this
the sixth is Cancer, the moon. So it's like there you have it too, kind of.
Yeah, and moon with the Mars, as Shanice mentioned. Yeah, so I think that if indeed we were going with the Mars as the career, this person would definitely be the kind of would be like I would say either a nurse, like an emergency room nurse, or a surgery nurse, a surgeon themselves they could possibly be. I could definitely see firefighting. I could also see chefing. Now,
Have we looked at the Venus? Or did you just
I was
pick
just
Mars
gonna
already?
say, I was
Oh,
just
okay.
gonna say, if we were going to use the Venus, what would we say? Because the moon is applying to the Venus. The moon is applying to the Venus in this chart. So she's separating from the Mars and going to the Venus. So on some level, the Venus might be even more indicated.
It's really tight too. It's
Venus
like
in
right
Leo
on
would
there.
be something grandiose. So fashion.
Yeah, fashion. Now remember that the seventh house is the house of buying and selling. This person could sell high, like haute couture or jewelry.
And that's where the Mercury is in a Venus ruled sign. And
Mercury is
and
a
Venus is
ruled-
the I was going from Venus to the sun and then sun to Mercury and then back to Venus.
Mercury's in a Venus ruled sign. You're right. She is. He
So
is.
it's like that's how they, you know, express.
So they want to express aesthetically.
Yeah.
And
And then
we're-
it might
and
mean that they might have the
and
mind
look,
to do.
Hey, and look, the ruler of the moon is in a Venus ruled sign. Mercury is in a Venus ruled sign. So really, we want to, it looks like we might want to be looking at Venus as the significator instead. Yes? Because even, I mean, moon is with Mars, so that's going to have a lot of effect. So maybe this person should be making their own jewelry, a glass blower, working with jewelry where you need to heat things up. What kind of jewelry is that? Where you have to heat things up and
Like
do
a
whatever other
metalsmith?
thing.
Gold jewelry.
A metalsmithing or silversmith.
Metals.
Yeah,
So we're back to smithing. We're back to smithing.
Also,
Although
the
one
fact
of the
that
Venus
it's-
signs has a, well, I guess it is Jupiter too, but Saturn right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just being a jeweler, like people who set jewelry, you know, like gemstones or rings.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
jewelry.
Also-
Go ahead.
Yeah, also I think Venus is in Leo, a sun ruled sign, so gold jewelry.
Gold jewelry, very good, excellent, fantastic, wonderful. Excellent, fantastic, wonderful. A gold jewelry. So I think, and like I said, it's in the 7th house of buying and selling. So I think they could sell jewelry. They could do well with selling jewelry. They could do well with any of the things I think we talked about. Where's the part of fortune? Somebody find the part of fortune for me.
Okay, so it's a date chart, so from sun to moon, and then we add that to the ascendant. So the sun is at Virgo, 23, so this would be 30, 60, and 20, 80. 80 from ascendant would be 11, and then 41, and then 71, it would be Taurus.
Let's see. So it's 90 minus 10. Yes, it would be 10 degrees of Taurus. So so now we know exactly who we should be looking at of the two,
Venus.
Venus.
right? And now we need to take into account what Layla just said about Saturn being there. But who is
I don't
Saturn?
think it's necessarily a bad thing. It just might mean that it takes her a while, or whatever she does, the kind of jewelry she makes should be the like painstakingly laborious,
Hard
elaborate.
work.
like-
Yeah.
What do we call it? Labor intensive?
Yeah, and that's
This
like
person-
fine. Just go for that.
Mhm. Oh, I see. But I was thinking that Saturn is the ruler of the ascendant in this chart.
It is.
So we have ruler of the ascendant on the part of fortune.
Yeah, it all points in the same direction. I love it when that
Yeah,
Ruled
so
by
it's all-
Venus.
It's Venus. It's ruled by Venus, exactly. So it all points to Venus. And so this person, I think this person should be selling luxury items. That's what I think. And to women, I think they might work in a bridal
Selling
store.
or making? I don't know. I
Both.
feel like making
Or
is
both.
definitely, yeah.
But see, the 7th house is selling.
Okay.
The fifth house would be more making. Right?
Well,
If we
it's
saw
not
the,
necessarily just transactional selling. It's like relationships
but here's the thing.
of sales too.
Here's the thing. Absolutely. Here's the thing. If I have a good friend whose daughter is a seamstress, and so she right now is she works with drag queens and she makes costumes for them. And so basically she's selling her services as a seamstress. And she's basically doing this a Venus like this. She's selling, but she's not primarily a salesperson. She has the skill as an artisan. She has an artisan skill that she uses to make money with. And so Maria, I would agree with you. I think that it's not so much just like stand behind a counter and sell jewelry, but yes, this person could be the jeweler who sells their wares. And I don't think that this person would be, to be honest with you, with the Mars up there in the 10th, I don't think this person would be satisfied just sitting behind the counter. just to confirm, we are so focused on Venus because it is the dispositor of the MC, ascendant, ruler, or okay, we're focused on her because if we remember from what we were talking about with Bonatti, we were looking to see what planets in the first, nothing there. Oh, what planets in the 10th? Nothing there. Oh, what planets in the 7th? We looked at the planet in the 10th and we decided, oh, okay, we'll come to see what that would mean if we thought that the planet in the 10th was the significator for what we're looking at. But if it's not, then let's move to the next angle where there just happens to be a planet, which is Venus. So Venus is in an angle, and then it also turns out that she rules the part of fortune. So it was looking, like I said, it was looking like, oh, wait. And then it also turns out that she is the ruler of Mercury. Always remember, I'm always looking at the moon and the Mercury to represent the soul of the person, what's in there. So not only is Mercury ruled by Venus, but the moon is ruled by Jupiter, who's ruled by Venus. Venus is where we're all going. It's all kind of moving back to her. Mars is ruled by Jupiter, who is ruled by Venus. Saturn is ruled by Venus. Moon is ruled by Venus. Sun is ruled by Mercury, who's ruled by Venus. Get it? Everything moves back to her. So that's how we can ultimately focus. What's the word I'm looking for? That we ultimately find ourselves focusing back on her. Or rather, what we found out was that Mars wasn't who we wanted to look at. And also, the moon's next application is to Venus. So everything in this chart is pointing to Venus being the significator for career, unless we looked at a compound on mutant or something like that. Now, let's look at the 3 triplicity rulers of the 10th house. Now, if you remember the first triplicity ruler, which the jury is out for me on that one, represented how high in life, the nature of the career, how high in life they would go. The second represented the voice of command. And the third represented its durability. So once they find that career, how do we think it would go for them? First of all, let's look at the 10th house. What's going on with that and all that shit?
Okay, so this is a day chart. So the first triplicity ruler would be Jupiter. The second would be Sun, and Saturn would be the cooperative ruler, right?
Wait, isn't it Sun first?
It's Sun first, then
Oh,
Saturn.
sorry, yeah, Sun first, yeah, for the daytime, yeah.
Okay, so the Sun would kind of show us how well the career is supposed to go. I really don't like that first triplicity ruler. What I've been finding is the second and the third work out just fine, but I haven't been able to really capture how the first one is supposed to really show it. Whereas the second one, as far as the voice of command, so that would be this retrograde Jupiter on the part of fortune, right? And then the third would be the Saturn. So we've got the second and the third triplicity rulers on the part of fortune. So the durability and the voice of command. So for right now, I'm going to just continue to ignore the first one and just focus on the second and third. It looks like this could be with ups and downs, quite a durable career once they find it. So I would definitely say they should be going for anything dealing with luxuries. Venus and the Sun are both luxuries. Leo is ruled by the Sun. Dealing with gold, they could be a goldsmith, right? So dealing with heat, right? Because Venus is in the fire sign. Mars is the smith, and he's in the 10th, right? Moon and Mars together. So this person should like fire. This person might have a little bit of a pyro streak in them.
Say it is the Sun in Virgo. If you actually look at the first trip ruler of the 10th house, what kind of careers would that even describe?
Well, it doesn't describe a career. It describes how high in the career they're going.
And see, I'm using Dorothean trip rulers, which is the same ruler, but it says straight up work and status.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, from what? Okay, hold on, let me get the Bonatti one. It says...
No, I believe you, dude. I was just looking at I was looking at something different.
But if we looked at work and status, then we would still go back to the fact that the Sun is ruled by Mercury, who's ruled by Venus. It all goes back to her, period. It all ends up kind of going back to her and what she's about. So we should just go there with her, is kind of my feeling. Let's see what Bonatti says, because I remember I saw something else where Bonatti had changed the wording from the Islamics too. when we were looking at, was it the ninth house, or we were looking at something else, or he had changed the order of with the eighth house, I think it was. Okay, first ruler of triplicity king rules work exaltations and the elevation to a higher seat of authority and to the highest dwelling. So that's why I was feeling like I don't think this one really shows what that says.
Yeah.
That's why and with all of them. But if it's just work, and if it's just kind of what did Dorothea say?
I have a little cheat sheet that says work and status.
See, there's that the status part is the part that Bonatti is focusing on.
And you
And
guys, you go on to second is like leadership skills. What did you say?
No, what it said was it's representing how high the person rises in their career.
Okay, so that is different. And then 3 is stability, or like how long they stay there.
No, okay, so 3 is referring to 2. So they're talking about the voice of command. What does Dorothea say about the second triplicity ruler?
Leadership skills is second.
Oh, right. So
The
voice
of command is this
is the
leadership.
same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so voice of command and audacity in the same, and then the third signifies the stability and durability. And so I'm assuming
okay. Yeah, it's the same. 2 and 3 are the same.
2 and 3 are the same. Okay, good. It's just a little bit of a different thing with that first one. But
Well, yeah, and it doesn't really give you much,
Yeah, but Bonatti makes it really clear. Rules work exaltations, not just your work, and the elevation to a higher seat of authority and to the highest dwelling. So the first triplicity ruler should be something that contributes to that signification. Thanks so much, Maria. So good to see you. Thanks so much for coming. Missed you. And come back.
Yes, I finally had a chance. I know I was traveling, but I finally had a chance to log in. So I had like terrible internet. I could never log in.
No problem. Well, you're always welcome. It's always great to see you. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks for having me. Bye.
Always. Take care. So, I mean, that's why I'm saying I'm not sure about this 10th. I mean, certainly when we've already found that the significator of we've decided that the significator for work in this chart is the Venus. Then what does the sun have to do with that? I guess would be what does the sun have to do with it? It's the house in which she's in. He's the ruler of the house she occupies. So in my opinion, from now on, that's how I'm going to look at this. I'm going to look at the first triplicity ruler only in connection with the planet that I decide is the significator for profession. Because look at this. The sun is the ruler of the house of the significator for profession, which gives me even more. And you said it, Layla, I think the one-on-one. This person needs to work one-on-one. So a practitioner like me, or like a seamstress, or like a goldsmith. So this person would work with a clientele one-on-one. And so maybe that's what will exalt it to the higher seat. Is the 7th house signification of the sun. So maybe the planet itself doesn't describe, but maybe it supports either the ruler of the 10th or the planet that signifies the profession. Something to think about.
Yeah, I think it's as you said before, that you kind of like, this is like a little more labor intensive, but you have to look at a bunch of different things. I still would always look at ruler of the 2nd, ruler of the 10th, even ruler of the 6th, if you see working as a slave laborer and what you just did, that whole process. And then you see if the clues, all of them point kind of in the same direction.
Point back. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You're just confirming your judgment. You're using different things to confirm the same judgment. And then if they don't, then you're trying to figure out, okay, what's going on. But like I said, this has really just kind of been a fun exercise on some level. But through the course of the exercise, we came to what we think is the real answer, right? The real answer is that Venus is the lord of the profession in this chart, is the significator of the profession in this chart. And that if we look at the sun as the first triplicity ruler of the 10th, in conjunction with that, we see that all of a sudden there is a connection between those two planets. Venus is in his sign and Venus is in his house, meaning that it further confirms the need for them to be working in a 7th house capacity, which is face to face or the public. Don't forget that the 7th house is also the public. So indeed, they could be standing behind a counter selling jewelry, but we don't think this chart looks a little too restless to do that. Okay, so so you all can do the blind chart, and then we'll end there. We'll end after this last one, after the blind chart. Okay. So what would be the first thing you would look for or look at when you have a blind chart? How do you enter?
I would start with the ruler of the ascendant.
Okay. And what else?
And any aspects being made to the ruler of the ascendant, its dignity, debility, anything like that.
Let me make another suggestion too.
Okay.
I think it's just as important, or rather I've learned through the course of the stuff that we've been doing, that it's just as important and effective to be looking to see what planets are in advancement.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That really does work. What planets are angular, what planets are succeeding, but especially what planets are angular, and which one is it? Because
Okay.
they're going to come forward. So I know you're absolutely right. And that's before I kind of learned this, that would be my way too. What's the ascendant? Who's the ruler of the ascendant? What's going on with them? Blah, blah, blah. All your instincts are fantastic. However, I will also say that as a kind of a cursory glance, one of the very first things that we should be is looking at the ascendant. And I mean, looking at the angles. So, okay, so based on what you just told me, what are you thinking?
Okay, so what's advancing is Saturn and Venus.
Okay. So
Yeah,
that brings us to Venus twice.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
what
but Venus is in Saturn's sign too.
Ooh, so that
And
brings
Saturn
us
is the
back.
Venus, yeah. There's
And
mutual
then-
respect.
And then who are the rulers of Libra?
Yeah, Venus and Saturn.
All right. So already we've got something going on. So and who are the houses involved? So what would we say? Who are the houses
First
involved?
and
What would we say?
First and the 4th house, so something to do with their roots and their own self.
Okay. And Venus is in the 4th. So what would we say possibly? How would we describe that? What would we say about their home life or their parents or whatever?
4th house is the father, and Venus is in the domicile of father. So this person is heavily influenced by their father.
Well, I'm actually thinking more. Venus in the 4th often means that they're raised by a woman. That the main parent is a woman. Is that the case in this chart?
Yeah, it could be.
Actually, I think there was a somewhat prominent father. I'm gonna look to see who raised the person, because I think that's different than who ends up influencing them, if that makes sense. Give me a
or
second.
do they come from a matriarchal tradition? So often
okay.
either they're raised primarily by a female parent, or the family itself is matriarchal.
Let's see if I can figure
Okay,
it out.
what's the degree of that Mars and Venus? I cannot, Venus is 25 degree, I believe. And what's the degree of Mars?
Mars is 23.
Ooh,
Venus
it's a
Venus
separating,
is recently
separating trine.
separated. Mhm.
Yeah, separating trine. Okay.
So wait, so talk, I mean, since there is this thing between the 4th and the 1st, what other
Yeah.
things are connected to the 4th besides the father and the family?
I mean, I would, yeah, whatever.
Well, I mean,
Okay,
you're the
so
one that gave
it's
us
the
the
8th house. It's the 8th house and the 5th house too, because they both rule the 8th and 5th as well.
That's right. But I'm asking, what other things does the 4th house represent? Because the 1st and the 4th are connected by mutual reception. So what other things could it be? If it's not specifically the family, what else could it be?
Your house, your home.
That's
and,
right. It could be how, so we could say, is this person interested in real estate or agriculture or gardening or anything of that nature?
Yes. I
Which
mean,
one?
sort of, in the sense that they are, I would say real estate was a theme or is a theme in their lives.
Is land or property, land or home property?
Yep, I think property, I'm trying to look into this too.
well, it would make sense because Venus rules the eight. It's the other people's finances.
Mm-hmm.
I would,
And,
yeah.
Is this person involved in any kind of retreat? Like, are the properties retreat related or relaxation or enjoyment related? Is this
No, I
person-
may have misled you a bit when I said that. I want to give, I don't know how to say it without giving it away. So it's not like they make their money that way. They was just, and no, not to do really with retreats. In fact, that's not what the person does or did at all.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So
So, good.
it's like a side hustle, this real estate thing that Antoine mentioned.
It's not a business at all.
It's not a business at all, but they're somehow involved with this.
Is it inherited?
Yeah, I
from
would
the
say their
family?
name was,
Is it
shall we say,
inherited
in the
from-
Okay,
papers
okay.
to do with,
Okay, I get it. So they're in
It's
a
inherited from the
business
family.
where, okay, yeah. So it somehow made a connection, but it's not their primary way to earn a living.
Is it inherited from the family? Is there land or property inherited from the family from this person?
no, I think if anything, well, no, I don't want to give you more information. No, I don't think so. No.
Okay. Okay, how about if we look at the ruler of the 10th because it's in the 5th house?
Yeah,
So it's is this someone involved in the entertainment business or
yep, bingo, bango,
Okay.
yep.
okay. And Saturn is, oh, that moon is applying a trine to the Saturn in the 1st house. Okay, so it's a person in entertainment business and okay, what's
Is
happening?
it a, but wait, but is it a performer or a business person?
A performer.
Of course.
Maybe
Alright.
not one who is technically skilled, but one who is
Basically,
massively popular in their time. Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
so-
also, oh, sorry, you go on.
Tell me, are they known for playing characters or that are, I mean, if it's an actor, do they have a persona that is hard, solid, stolid, that kind of thing?
No, no,
Oh, really?
Okay.
Interesting.
no. I
Also,
would say if anything, there's a streak of instability. No, this person's known for.
No.
Alright.
No. My question was, are they known for playing characters
No.
that are like that?
Also,
okay.
also not.
Okay.
all
good.
right. Do they have an unstable relationship? Do they have are they surrounded by unstable relationships?
Yes.
All
Very
right.
good.
Okay. This is funny. All right. Okay, Jupiter is in the 2nd house. So what
Is there
does
a problem
that
with
mean?
depression?
Yeah, I think there was. I think there has been. Yeah.
Is there a problem with losing more money than making, or losing as much money? Does money come in but go out just as fast in this chart?
Okay, spending money has not been a problem as far as I know for this person.
All right. Has there ever
Okay.
been a sex scandal attached to them?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay. So it's a separating trine. So it's not happening. All right.
Has this
Venus
person
is-
never been married? Has this person never been married?
No, I don't want to. Okay.
They
No,
have
they
been
have
married?
been married.
Wait,
They,
wait,
they
they
wait,
are
wait.
currently married.
They are currently
Wait,
married.
wait. Okay. Okay, so the ruler of the seventh house is in a separate.
Actually, in fact,
environment.
this is their third marriage. I just looked it up. Sorry.
So
I
more
was
than
gonna
one
ask you the
marriage.
exact same thing.
More
Yeah.
than one marriage. Okay, that makes sense. More than one marriage.
Yeah.
Because marriages should not last in this chart. I was
Yeah,
thinking
of
that
course.
they either
The
not have
seventh
one
and
or not last at all. Mhm.
Yeah, the seventh
Seventh
and
and the
eight are in
12th?
an aspect. Okay,
Yeah,
okay, so
seventh and the 12th. Also, the square to the Saturn, even though it's mutual reception, it's still gonna
yeah,
create challenges. It's still
Yeah,
gonna
Venus-
make the relationship challenge. Oh, have they ever worked with somebody they married, or are they known for being married to somebody that they worked with?
Yes, I think that, wait, hold on. Let me make sure. I think this person, yes, this person worked
Oh.
with her or with this person, and then they got married. Sorry, I just gave away the gender.
Okay, yeah. So they
Ooh.
should be known for that. That one that they should be known for being married to this person that they worked
Wait, how
with.
did you get that?
Saturn, Venus.
Wait, how?
Saturn,
Saturn, Venus.
because Saturn is labor.
Saturn's her.
Saturn
Saturn's
is in Libra, Venus is in yes, and it's a square. So often when you've got Venus with the square, any square represents work. It's what we have to do to take care of the tension, right? So it's Venus square. It's a Venus square happening, and it's Venus square Saturn, who's already labor, but he's not. But a Venus square Saturn would often deny the person. So instead, there's a mutual reception. So it's not denying. That's why I asked if it had never happened. But since there's a mutual reception, they must have worked with the person.
That's
And
cool.
that might be a thing. There might be a problem. That might be part of the problem with the other relationships, is that this person might not actually be good at romantic intimacy, but they can, if it's a working relationship, they can do it just fine.
Also, Antoine, the south node is right there on the Venus.
Is it? Oh, sure enough.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yep.
Venus K2. Okay, so the rest, that's the headlessness
Yep.
and the restlessness,
Exactly.
bad decisions.
Yeah.
Bad decisions.
Also bad stuff in that realm. Hint, hint.
Mhm.
All right.
What
All
was he
right.
just talking? Oh wait, what was CS just talking about? Is that there's something about the love life that they hide, that they don't want others to know about. That was when Venus was in K2's nakshatra. So here Venus is with K2. Now, when K2's around, he makes people act in a headless manner. He's the tail without the head. So I would say also that there might be at least one of these marriages was a really bad decision.
Yeah, I think we can agree on that one. In fact, potentially more than one, but I don't know the whole biography of this person.
I mean, generally, if the marriage doesn't last, it's not necessarily a good decision. But marriages can go bad. It could have started fantastically and been a great marriage, and then something happened. A great marriage happens, and then a child dies and ruins it. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing to do with the two people. It's a horrible situation that happened that drove them apart. And so, but this looks like the person will make bad choices in relation to it.
Yeah, makes sense. Also, it's Pluto in the late degrees of Libra, so it's someone born in the early 80s. So they're probably in the late 30s or early 40s.
Yes.
Tell me,
this person is 40.
Does this person have a well-known brother or sister?
No, but I would urge you all not to ask a leading question, but what is this person's relationship to their family members?
Okay.
Worth
I'd
considering.
say I think it would be pretty decent because of that mutual reception, and and Jupiter is in the second house and the whole sign, but it would be in the first. If you look at it through any other house system, it probably would be in the first. So I'd say it's not like super exemplary, but maybe decent.
I'm wondering if money is involved in the family situation, and if that might be creating issues.
What makes you say that?
Well, if the person is supporting them, or if the person is supporting the family, or if money has always been a major consideration because of the moon in the second from the fourth, which is the family's money.
The second from the fourth. So it's the family and then providing money, and that's where she is, or at least the moon is. I'm trying to just understand your reasoning, because it's true. This person does support or has supported in the past their family, but I didn't get how you got there exactly. Second from the fourth.
Second from the fourth. So I was looking at the second from the fourth to see what the money situation of the family is, and there that person's moon is. And not only is it the moon, it's the 10th house ruler, which is their career. So more than likely their money is their career is supporting their family's money, is going into the family's money. And so, and the 11th house, which is the careers, the money from the career is in the third, which is one of the reasons I was asking about if there was a brother that was well known. But I think that possibly this person's being taken advantage of by their family financially.
I think I know who this person is.
Yeah.
Spears.
Britney
It's Britney
Spears.
Spears.
It's Brittany. So,
And so,
I would have said
hey,
Layla-
so guess,
yeah.
I want to say something here before you do. So what we can see from this, the mutual reception is really the symbiosis between the father and the daughter. There's a symbiosis, right? And
That's
it's
what I was
both
going to ask about.
It's the ruler of the first. Both of them are ruling the first. The ruler of the fourth is in the first. So he's got influence. And you said it. You said it, Layla Akbar. You first thing you said. This person's influenced by their family. But we can see that the father, and notice that the ruler of the fourth is exalted. He's stronger than the ruler of the ascendant, who's in the fourth. So the father has the power.
Yeah. But Venus is separating from that power at the same time. So even though it manifested, it happened, but she was able to get away from that.
Exactly. And then the fact that the moon is in the fifth, which like you said, it's the entertainment, but it's also the second from the fourth. When you said that second from the fourth is the family's money, is that the family legacy or current financial standing you're referring? I'm referring the current financial standing, both, really, both. But the current financial standing.
Though,
Antoine, that was so cool when you did that second from the fourth thing.
yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
And so you see the moon there and you know then that it's coming from her. That's like the final piece I'm a little confused about.
Yeah, that's what.
Like, how do you
associate? It's definitely Brittany.
Well, the thing is that, remember, the moon in horary, the moon is where the major consideration lies. It's where the major, your major kind of worry or feeling. It's where your major feeling. It's the sensitive spot. It's the soft spot. And we know that this person's influenced by their father. Notice that Saturn rules the fourth and the fifth. He rules the fourth and the second from the fourth. So that means that the family indoctrinated this person into sharing their finances with them, indoctrinated the person into supporting them. This person was coerced into doing it. And so that's what, so when I saw the moon there, it's the person is doing it of their own volition, but we know that it's of their own volition because of the coercion between the Saturn and the Venus.
Yeah. I'd like to add one more thing, Antoine.
What's that? Of course.
I think we once discussed that the theme with the Venus-Saturn aspects is probably that you either, like, Venus-Saturn aspects indicate an age gap within your spouses. And she recently married someone who's younger than her.
Oh, is he younger than her? Makes sense, but I never.
How much younger? How much younger?
Wait, I'll have
right
to
now.
check.
I have her wiki pulled up. She's 40. He is 28. That's
he's
decent.
28.
12
Yeah.
years? Yeah, that makes it. Yeah, certainly. So there is. I mean, obviously there are daddy issues in this chart. So more than likely she's doing the opposite.
It can show delays too in getting married. And she married a few times in haste, but then this guy she was dating for years before she married
didn't
him.
she marry, what was it, Jason? Or
Yeah,
Kevin
Kevin
Federline,
Federline.
one of her backup
Kevin
dancers. That was another good find too. Another good catch.
So what do we think is the relationship between the father and the marriages, the family and the marriages?
Is
Well,
marriage the seventh house?
Seventh house, right? So I mean, it doesn't look like there's no relationship, is what I'm really. And notice that the ruler of the seventh is in the 12th. What I actually think is that Brittany did this to have some space to herself. Brittany in all probably that's why the decisions were bad, because ultimately Brittany was looking for an escape hatch from the real world, which all of which was her father, all of which was her family and her her work and supporting her family. And so more than likely she was looking for something to take her out of that context. And I think that that might be why the bad decisions about that. And then you've got whatever's going on with this guy she's been with as well at this particular point. But it does look like to me was trying to escape, that she was using marriage as an escape. And so I wouldn't even be surprised if she tried to keep the interaction between her family and her husband's as little as possible. I wouldn't be surprised if she tried to separate it.
Is there
Good.
anything that can show that she was involved with pop music?
Popular music, not necessarily, not in my opinion. I mean, what represents fads? What represents fashions and fads and trends? We learned this
Fashion
recently.
planet.
Yeah, it's a
I
planet.
think of planet. Okay.
Fashion would be Venus.
Well, no. Fashions.
So that would be moon, I
Trends.
guess.
Mercury?
Trends, right? Trends,
Yeah.
fads, trends, things that go in and out of style. That's the moon.
Things that are purchased.
Well, I mean, no, we're not. It's not so much the consumerism aspect. It's the Gestalt aspect, right? It's the Gestalt that makes you buy the iPhone 12. It's not the product itself. It's the hype around the product and the fact that everybody buys an iPhone and blah, 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 and we see iPhone everywhere and it's the phone to have and blah,
Yeah, but
it's
I
all that
associate
stuff.
advertising with Mercury. I don't know if that's right or wrong. but
That's
I
the
do.
advertising. Yes, that's the advertising. But the fact that the iPhone is the thing of right now makes it a fashion, makes it a
Yeah.
trend, which makes it moon.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So in this particular case, the moon's in Aquarius, which is Saturn ruled. So that doesn't necessarily show us anything about trends in this chart. Venus is in a Saturn ruled sign. If anything, this just shows that this person's a very serious worker. Takes their job seriously. It isn't fucking around. Doesn't fuck around with their job. No, I don't think there's anything that shows. Even Saturn in the first, if someone were to say, what kind of music does this person do? I would have thought maybe classical music. Saturn in the first, right? Heavy, deep.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't always give off the vibe though. It shows the approach to the craft, like you said.
But I mean, yeah, exactly. But I mean, if like I just said, if somebody asked me, that's what I would have said.
Yeah. It wouldn't like jump out at you. No, I was just
No, I don't
curious.
think
I was
I
curious
don't
whether
think
you can
anybody would
see
catch
stuff
it.
like that at all.
No, I don't think Venus is trends, because the thing about a trend is that it goes in and it goes out of fashion, right? A trend comes in, a trend comes out. The trend goes out, right? It doesn't stay. For instance, has anybody here ever heard of Vera Talmage?
No.
Okay, Vera Talmage was one of the most important singers of the 19 teens. Ain't nobody heard of her. Right? She was a huge star. Ever heard of the Jimmy Lunceford Big Band? Same thing, right? There are all of these things that were in style, that were absolutely important, that were 100% the thing that we put in. Anybody remember Kate Smith? That's even more important. Anybody heard of Kate Smith? Everything I'm doing is American centric. I understand. I'm sorry. We could do it with with people from whatever countries you all are from as well. But my point is that there are people who were at the absolute forefront of importance and relevance who nobody remembers anymore. And that's the moon, right? Because the moon rules the tide, who washes away everything on the shore, honey. And the tide comes in, the tide goes out, and the tide is always different every time. Venus rules fashion. Yes, so yes, Venus rules couture and fashion. Yes, she does not rule fashions and trends and fads. That's the difference we're making. Any other comments or questions about this chart? All right. Well, we'll end it there.